Good evening and welcome to the June Lithgow City Council meeting. I would like to do acknowledgement of country. Lithgow City Council acknowledges the Wiradjuri elders, past and present, of the Wiradjuri Nation, the original custodians of the land in which the Lithgow communities reside. The Council also extends our respects to our neighbouring nations. I inform all those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast and that those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing these matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Congratulations to Councillor Steve Ring. Welcome back to do the last half of the term on Lithgow City Council. Councillor Ring took the affirmation on Friday afternoon in front of the General Manager. All councillors are present this evening. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest?
Madam Chairman, could I ask, I noticed that the rearrangement of councillors around the room. Can I ask, was this because you believe this arrangement will work better for the council or for yourself?
For myself, what do I have to benefit from it? Councillor Leslie?
In that case, I was wondering why the rearrangement.
Oh, I tried to be as impartial as possible, and I think there's only two people. Who's moved? There's only two people moved, you and Councillor Marnie. I think that's pretty good to actually have 8 on the ground. Pardon? Councillor O'Connor needed to hire desk, and that was pointed out this time last year. Is there a problem, Councillor Leslie?
I think we will find there's a problem, whereas, as I notice, every councillor who stood on your ticket is sitting next to somebody who was not on that same ticket. Councillor Marnie and Councillor Coleman stood on the same ticket. They're not together in any way. I just think that
Excuse me, Councillor Leslie. You have Councillor Marnie not on my ticket, Councillor O'Connor on my ticket, Councillor Goodwin not on my ticket, Councillor Bryce on my ticket, Councillor McGee on my ticket, then you, then Councillor Ring, then Councillor Coleman. I haven't put anyone together that's on their same ticket. I've made very clear of my intentions.
That's precisely my point. You have not put anyone who was on the same ticket together, and therefore people of presumably of like minds are now separated. It seems.
I think it's a great idea. There's been too many discussions between some of the different councillors. This way, everyone is totally independent, and there'll be no other discussions except the topic that we're speaking about. Any declarations of interest tonight? No declarations of interest at all? Thank you. Item 5, confirmation of the previous minutes. Could I have somebody move that? Thank you. Councillor Bryce, have a seconder. Thank you. Councillor Goodwin, all those in favour say aye. Thank you.
Councillor Statham, I cannot vote for minutes that I wasn't present at.
So we know that, Councillor Ring. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Commemorations and announcements. On behalf of the Lithgow City Council, I, as Mayor, express sincere sympathy and condolences to families who have lost loved ones since the last council meeting. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Public forum. Any person...
Excuse me, Councillor, Mayor Stephen. I'd actually like to make a commemoration if I could.
They've got to come through the chair now. We prefer them to come through the chair, but because you haven't been on, I'll allow that, Councillor Ring.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the success of Black Gold in the Central West Business Awards for a large employer. It was an amazing outcome for a local business and sets the bar very high for our businesses. I'd also like to acknowledge all the winners of the Black Rose Excellence in Business Awards who attended those awards in the West. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ring.
Mayor Stephen, I've just got a short I suppose announcement maybe. We had a very large group of footballers visiting from Dubbo on the weekend, and whilst we had a fairly major sewage malfunction, which did make the day very challenging, I just wanted to acknowledge when staff do the right thing, and I know that our members of our committee rang through, and I realise we can't acknowledge individuals, but there's certainly staff within the workforce who very much about problem solving and really went beyond what their Monday to Friday duty is. So just wanted to acknowledge that and appreciate the staff, particularly out of Mr Edgecombe and Mr Trapp's team. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. That's excellent news.
Mayor Stephen, before the public forum, could I move a procedural motion, please?
Yes, certainly, Councillor Ring.
I'd like to formally have item 10.11 withdrawn. The oath of office has been taken. That was done on Friday between myself and the General Manager.
I've already commented on
No,
that.
you've commented, but it hasn't been formally withdrawn from the paper.
No, but I've got it in here to go straight over to the next item,
Yes, but it has
Councillor
to be
Ring.
withdrawn, it's my understanding. So, the other, I would like to have items 10.5.2, 10.5.3 and 10.5.1 brought to the beginning of the meeting.
So you're moving that way, Councillor Ring?
Yes?
Could I have a second, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to support
Thank you,
that.
Councillor Marnie. All those in favour say aye. So can you just repeat those, please, Councillor Ring?
The first item to be dealt with would be item 10.52, second 10.53, and the third item 10.51.
Could you please give the page numbers, please, Councillor Ring?
It's all correct.
It's right. It's right. The sequence is right.
Did the late that's okay. They're all
Page 15 is 10.52, which the later report was sent out.
That's correct.
10.53, there are no page references to the late report. And
5.1.
5.1 is page 11.
Hasn't that already happened? Right, we'll be dealing now with 10.52.
Before we move on, so that I can have my say,
And can I also speak against that motion?
and we've got to have public forum anyway.
Yes.
But before we move on, before we move
Excuse
on,
me, somebody's
councillors, I've
speaking.
got this
Yes, you do.
microphone. Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge the library staff who worked tirelessly in regards to the Waste to Art event on Friday. I didn't get there, but I heard that it was fabulous, and they need to be acknowledged for that because they backed it up on Saturday morning with the orchestra the next day, and I was there for that and surprised my mother with a bunch of flowers because she was providing an art class at the same time. So I just want to mention the library staff, how tirelessly they worked both Friday and Saturday morning.
Yes, I also would like to acknowledge that. I think there was about 8 different functions on the weekend, and I attended 7 of them, I think. So it's been a very busy weekend. No.
it hasn't been debated. Councillor Marnie seconded.
Right, so we need to debate the procedural motion that the matters be moved.
So we have Councillor Ring moved 10.52. Councillor Marnie seconded that motion.
He moved procedurally that the order be changed, so we're opening up the debate. Did
Yes.
Councillor Ring want to speak to that?
So we've now moved procedurally for the debate to be changed to now instead of later in the agenda. Councillor Ring, would you like to speak to that?
I believe, sorry. We need to have public forum. Sorry. We need to have public forum
Yes.
first. After public forum or a mayoral
Yes.
minute, then
Yes.
we can talk to it.
So public forum this evening.
No, we need to, so we need to do the procedural motion. Councillor Ring asked that the order be changed. Marnie seconded it. He's spoken to it. Does
Yeah.
Councillor Marnie want to speak to moving the order? We need to ask Councillor Marnie, does he wish to speak to?
Councillor Marnie, do you wish to speak to moving the order of the 3 requests from Councillor Ring?
No,
No,
the
good.
logic's pretty sound.
Is there any dispute or Councillor McGee?
Yes, I'd like to speak against it. I'm quite happy with the
Point
order.
of order. It's a procedural motion. There can be no debate on the matter.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. All right, all those in favour, say aye. Yes, carried, thank you. So we will move back to public forum, and that will be discussed after public forum. Thank you. Any person registered to speak during public forum on matters included in the business paper and registered via the council website prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting will have the opportunity to speak. There will be only 2 speakers for and against on each matter on the business paper. Public forum will be allocated half an hour in time total, with each speaker having 3 minutes to speak. Speakers not registered for public forum will have an opportunity to speak on matters of the business paper if time permits. So our first speaker this evening is Mr. Tom Evangelistis. Would you like to come forward? Thank you.
I'm here to talk about the rate rise. I have a question for the Mayor. When did you first learn about Lithgow's dire financial situation? When did you first know that we were in a really bad financial strait?
The first week I was elected to be Mayor in September 2012.
And why wasn't anything done about it then? Like, why have we waited until now, possibly the worst economic climate for a rate rise? Why wasn't anything done back then? Like anything, when you hit something early, it doesn't snowball. So why wasn't anything done then?
Very simple, but I'm not going to be answering questions. You're here to speak at public forum.
Okay,
I will
cool.
answer that question though. Absolutely correct. I tried to do something about it, and at the time, whoever is the general manager of the council has all rights to decide about an operational issue, and it is an operational issue. So if you'd like to continue, I'd be very happy to listen. Thank you.
Do you accept any responsibility for our financial situation since you've been a councillor?
Not at all. Absolutely none. I've been the one person that's tried to drive it forward.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Cool. Does the Mayor or the staff or any of the administration know how much property we have that is either sitting there doing nothing or earning less than, say, 4% return? That's a question I'm asking you. Do you know how much $1 million value you guys have sitting there doing nothing or that's not bringing a return?
I think you'd be better off to make your address and put in writing exactly what you would like the questions.
So you guys don't know. That's what I'm hearing. You don't know. Otherwise, you'd answer it right now, wouldn't you?
The general manager would like to take that up. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll take that as you don't know the answer. It's kind of your job to know.
Excuse me. He'll speak, Mr. Evangelist.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry for interrupting. Correct.
Mr. Evangelides, the public forum session is an opportunity for you to address the council. It's not a question and answer forum where we go backwards and forwards. So you're invited to address the council on any matter, including matters on the business paper, but we won't be answering questions backwards and forwards. As you know, I've met with you directly and we're always available to meet with any member of the public at any time. But this is a forum where you can address the council and raise the issues that concern you, and we invite that feedback, but we won't be going backwards and forwards answering questions.
Okay. You could have answered it, but okay. You know what I would have done if we were in bad financial straits? I would have said, okay, guys, we've totally messed up over all the years. It's not the people's fault. They've been paying their rates. It's really on us. Whether it's this councillor or that mayor or that general manager, it's on us. Yeah, Jamie, we need to sell some property, mate. It's been sitting there doing nothing for years and years.
Mr Evangelista, you'll have to ask for an extension, please, because
Can I
the
have an
3 minutes
extension,
is up.
please? My name's Evangelitis.
Evangelistus, I'm very... Councillor Coleman and Councillor Ring, thank you. All those in favour say aye.
Okay, we need to sell some property. Guys, GM, you need to take a pay cut. We've got to clean up shop here. The people have done nothing wrong. Why should they be forced to pay extra for our stuff up over all these years? That's what I would have done, but you guys didn't do that. You started a campaign to get all this town to support the rate rise. You asked the question, do you want to maintain existing services? Why not ask the question, do you want a rate rise, yes or no? It seems the most straightforward way to ask a question, but you're a little bit sneaky. That was sneaky. I quote the Mayor's statement from local media. After months of the most extensive community consultation ever undertaken in this city, we've received a mandate to address the great challenges we face. That sounds to me a mandate that the people wanted this. Yeah, we want the rate rise. That's how you get a mandate. What sort of bizarro world are you living in? And it seems Mr. Butler's in the same bizarro world, from the same story. We heard loud and clear from the many hundreds of people. Hang on, hundreds? This was the biggest survey of town. Aren't there 25,000 people? You've got hundreds. I bet you wanted thousands. We heard loud and clear from the many hundreds of people who engaged around this proposal. I mean, you guys are some serious twisters of the truth. Even if your tricks and massive propaganda campaign that we paid for, you still didn't get the result you wanted. 58% said no. Next time, just be honest to the media. The people do not want it, but we don't care. I quote the mayor from years ago, all Lithgow wants is a fair go. Do you really believe that now? You hit us with a rate rise at the worst time. Do the people in Lithgow know that the GM is on 260 grand a year, 5 grand a week, just got a pay rise? What for? For turning the economic situation around? For doing such a fantastic job? Listen, if you need a handout, you're not doing your job. This is the worst case scenario for a council. You're taking $1 grand a year away from me. You're stealing it. Because if someone came to me and said, oh, can I have $1,000?
Point of order. It's merging on a public attack with the General Manager, regardless of my opinions on the...
Thank you, Councillor Ring. I'll accept that point of order.
Can I continue?
I suggest to you that you be very careful what you say, because this is recorded and it's called
I know it's recorded.
All right, so I'd be very careful in future what you say, because it's all recorded and we can go back.
I'd appreciate if you don't tell me to be careful, thank you. Now, where was I? If someone had millions in assets, if someone had millions in assets and told me...
Excuse me, after that, one more point of order and I'll ask you to sit down, thank you.
So what do I do now? Do I continue?
That is a point of order from Councillor Bryce, and I also ruled Councillor Rings as a point of order.
Okay, so what's that mean? I don't understand.
The General Manager will clarify that, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm sure you would know what that meant.
I don't, that's why I'm asking.
Mr Evangelitis, we're just inviting you to speak civilly. We invite you to speak. We're fettered in what we can respond to. We ask you to speak reasonably and calmly and without attacking people and playing the person. We appreciate your passion, but just tone down the allegations and the accusations against staff and councillors.
If you let me finish, it was out of context when you cut me. If someone came to me and said, Tom, can I have $1,000? Yet I knew they had millions of dollars of assets, the only way they'd get that grant from me is if they stole it from me. This council has zero empathy, zero care and respect for the people of the town. You take no responsibility in your poor financial management, where it's been in the last year of the last 10 years. And you're about to give everyone a pay rise. I quote the mayor, anyone blaming council needs to get a life.
Thank you, Mr Evangelistus.
Evangelitis!
Hey, calm down.
Excuse me? Russ?
Councillors? Mr Christopher Barnett, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Chris Barnett, resident at Marangaroo Fields. Thank you for the opportunity to address Council tonight on this important matter. I wish to speak to the matter at 10.5.3 on the agenda, the making of rates and charges for 2023-24, and the special rate variation now approved by IPART. In particular, I want to speak about the inequitable distribution of the 27% property rate increase across the Lithgow LGA and its impact on landowners at Marangaroo and specifically the council-developed subdivision Marangaroo Fields. The rate increase for landowners at Marangaroo will be 68%, not the 27% applying to the rest of Lithgow. For me personally, this equates to an increase of $1,116 per annum using Council's rate calculator, which I use today. This increase is far higher than indicated by Council when promoting the special rate variation last year. Lithgow Council issued a fact sheet in April this year after receiving advice from the Valuer General's Department with respect to new land values across the LGA. I note from this that the 2022 land values were higher, the increases were higher in Portland, 112%, and Wallerawang, 135%, than in Lithgow, which was 79%. As you would be aware, Council have reduced the ad valorem amount, that's the amount that's multiplied by the land value to get the rate. And this ad valorem amount applicable to landowners at Portland and Wallerawang was reduced so that they don't face an exorbitant increase in rates due to their new and higher land values. At Marangaroo, the VG's land values have increased by 115%. That is, that they are in between the Portland and Wallerawang increases. Yet Council have not likewise reduced the ad valorem amount for Marangaroo Fields, which has resulted in the large increase that residents there, owners there, are now facing. When Council developed the Marangaroo Fields estate, Council set a lower ad valorem rate, that being at the time lower than Lithgow, Portland and Wallerawang due to the subdivision being rural residential. That is, the subdivision has no curb and gutter and no stormwater system for the buildings built there to be connected into. This reduced rate, which was 20% lower than the rest of the Lithgow LGA, existed until 2005 when it was removed.
Mr Barnett, would you like to have an extension?
Yes,
I'll
just
move
1
it.
minute.
Second.
I'm not sure who was first to move that.
Yeah. Thank you. At which time the ad valorem amount became...
All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Continue, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The ad valorem amount for Marangaroo Fields became the same as Lithgow, Portland and Wallerawang. Since that time and up until last year, Portland and Wallerawang's ad valorem amount has been further reduced by 22% and 26% respectively, meaning that a like-for-like property, for a like-to-like property, owners are paying significantly lower rates. For the 2023-24 year, Council have lowered the ad valorem amount rate at Portland and Wallerawang by 16% and 24% respectively, again further reducing their rates. My question to Council, would Council consider re-establishing a separate rating category for Marangaroo with a lower ad valorem amount to facilitate a fairer and a more equitable rate distribution in a similar manner to what has been done for Portland and Wallerawang? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Barnett. We have Emily Pearce. Emily, would you like to come forward? Thank you. This is Mr. George Pierce's, who was recently deceased. This is his granddaughter. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Marie Stathan, elected councillors and council officers. My name is Emily Pierce and I am the great-granddaughter of George Pierce. I would like to speak in regards to the proposed naming of the lane parallel to Inch Street, Lithgow, in his honour. Pop grew up in Glen Davis, and in 1952, at the age of 17, his family relocated to Lithgow. Pop worked at various businesses within the industrial and mining sector in the Lithgow area. For more than 60 years, he conducted his own business, commencing operation at his residential address, then moving to Inch Street, Lithgow, where it remains today. In the late 50s, he purchased the very first mobile welding machine west of Penrith, something he was very proud of. Pop was often referred to as a hard but fair boss. He was a very supportive of young people wanting to learn his trade. He was an avid supporter to the Lithgow High School Work Experience program and sponsored junior sports in the local district. During the Zigzag Railway development, Pop volunteered his time and knowledge of steam boiler drum maintenance, as this was a very unique skill he acquired. Pop gradually changed his business focus from welding to metal fabrication to earth moving due to health concerns. Pop's business premises and additional business land borders the majority of this lane's length. For many years, Pop had driven along this lane on a daily basis, inspecting his two properties, something he became very well known for. His love for work and teaching those willing to learn made Pop one of the longest serving business owners in the district, with over 60 years of continuous operation, as he retained an active part of the company up until the day he died at age 86. At present, to my knowledge, I believe this lane is unnamed, and now that this lane is an access way for the new established housing along its route, I believe that for the reasons mentioned, it would be fitting to name the lane in Pop's honour. To recognise his dedication and many contributions to the Lithgow area, including its working and industrial history, the owners of both houses facing this lane have given us written approval supporting the name Pierce Lane. George Pierce & Co. will continue to operate as an earth-moving, land management and civil works business as it presents location managed by my dad Craig, with operations being overseen by the other family directors, Shirley and Donald Pierce. As per my Pop's wishes, my sister Zoe and I will one day become the 4th generation owners of this business, something we'll both be proud of. Thank you in advance for considering our request. The Pierce family knows that if accepted, Pop would be extremely proud to have the lane named Pierce Lane in his honour. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Emily. Need to speak at public forum this evening? If there's nobody else, yes, certainly. Is it a matter on the business paper? Yes, certainly. Come forward, thank you. Sorry, what was your name?
Jeffrey Langlands from South Barn Fells. Just speaking on the rate rise, as I remember it, Council sent out a survey to the ratepayers or whatever asking what their feedback was, with the options of accept it or not accept it or whatever. 58% of people said no, we don't want it, and yet Council have decided that they're going to push through with it. And I think it's absurd and abhorrent for councillors to sit here and go not listening to the ratepayers. You could go back and say there's other options, other ways of doing things or whatever, but when the ratepayers have said no, we don't want it, then how can Council turn around and say that we're going to force it upon you? there's other options available. I don't know if you're told IPART that 58% of the residents said no, we don't want it. I think we need to have a good look at ourselves and say the ratepayers, you asked the ratepayers what they wanted, they said no, so how can you turn around and force it on the people? That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for speaking, Mr Langlands. Page 5, 9.1, notice of motion, Councillor Stuart McGee, renaming of Inch Street.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Yes. Yes, 10.5.2, late report, delivery program and operational plan. Can I have somebody move this report,
I'd like
please?
to move this report, please.
Thank you,
Mayor
Councillor
Statham,
Ring.
with amendments, thank you.
Your amendment, Councillor Ring.
If you'll bear with me, I'll read out the amendments and then I'll provide the written copy to Trinity so she can type it up faster, if that's acceptable.
Point of order.
I won't ask for a seconder until we hear the amendment.
Since Councillor Ring is actually moving the motion, there's no amendments required. I mean, he's moving the motion.
Yes, I agree, Councillor Leslie.
Okay. Well, I'm going to move modifications to the recommendations that are in the paper. Is that more in line? Yeah, thank you, Councillor.
If you're moving the motion, I need a seconder.
I'm moving.
Thank you.
I'll let her move it first. I got to talk to it first and tell people what it is. No, it has to be stated what it is. Of the recommendations in this report, I'd like to see item 1 deleted. Item 2, 3 and 4 then will be changed in order. Item 2 will become 1, and I want the first sentence deleted, and that council approves a special rate variation of 35.7% and reduce the rates imposed on the residential sector and modify the following documents accordingly. The next change I want is to, I want to add an additional point, which will be that the administration prepare a report outlining the requirements and opportunities for rate harmonisation within 3 months and bring that report back to council.
For the benefit of all councillors, I think that needs to be put on the screen so they can have a look at that before I ask for a seconder. Thank you.
At the beginning.
Mayor, can I ask a question, please?
Certainly.
Which report are we actually debating? Is it the late?
10.5.2.
Is that the late report?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
Yes. Has all councillors read that? Thank you.
I've just got a question as well, if I could please, Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Marnie.
I've got two 10.5.2 reports sitting in front of me.
They're both the same, Councillor Marnie, I think.
Okay, I'm not seeing that. I've got that one, and I've got one in my paper. So I've got one that's making of rates and annual charges, and I've got a delivery program.
Yes.
22-26 and the operational plan 23-24. So I'm assuming they're not interplaying with each other.
It was 10.5.2. Where's point 1?
I don't know if there's a typo there, but I'm happy.
Yes, please. Mr. Ross Gurney will clarify just which report we're looking at. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. Council is currently debating item 10.5.2, the late report on the delivery program and operational plan. There was a late report with a revised item number for the making of rates and annual charges. That's now item 10.5.3, and the reason for that is they needed to be considered in a specific order.
been typed up yet.
How's Trinity going with it?
Ms. Statham, can I ask a question in relation to foreshadowing a motion?
Yes.
If this motion doesn't get up by Councillor Ring, can I foreshadow a motion to go back to the original motion?
Absolutely, you can.
Okay, I'll foreshadow a motion.
Pardon?
I'd like to foreshadow a motion if this doesn't get up.
Yes, certainly. All right, I think we've spent enough time on this now.
Is it on the screen?
Is it on your screens yet? Okay. Thank you, Trinity. Thank you, Trinity. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it for the purpose of debate.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Ring, right of you'd like to speak to that, please?
Yes, I would like to speak to it, thank you. I have recommended deleting item number 1. It totally confused me. It does not talk about increased expenditure. A number of these items on that are, in fact, operational in nature. In fact, I am actually disgusted that standard working procedures to meet biosecurity obligations are already not enforced by this council. That is very disappointing. In terms of the rate rise, Mr. Langland's right. Survey was done. But unfortunately for the community, they need to understand that IPART process is tick a box. And the council has gone through that process, they've ticked the box. They did not need to go out to the community and seek approval. All they have to do...
Point of order, Mayor Statham, that's completely incorrect. That's not my understanding of IPART at all.
I would have to agree with Councillor McGee, Councillor Ring. That
Move
is
motion of
absolutely
dissent.
incorrect what you
Move
just said.
motion of dissent.
Oh, seriously?
Seriously, yes. I researched this. You go and do your homework and check it.
Don't insult my intelligence. We've been living and breathing this now for over 12 months.
Obviously, you're not aware of it because at the end of the day, this is a tick a box exercise and it's now up to the council. Laws do determine this rate and how it is applied. We do not have to apply this full rate tonight. We have up to 10 years to apply it. I've gone for 35.7% and to apply a decrease to residential because I think it is warranted. I think this council has made a rod for its back for going out to the public, offering a survey, giving the indication there is a choice, and then going against the wishes of the community. It has cost this council serious consumer confidence. This is an opportunity for this council to offer some cutback to the ratepayers, some acknowledgement, but it does not remove the opportunity from this council within the next 4 to 10 years, as it's stated in the IPART report, can reintroduce that, it can call back that additional 10%. In terms of rate harmonisation was an item in the rating report that this council had commissioned, and it made it very clear that this council in its past forms has had lacked the courage to deal with historical inaccuracies in our rating base. Now, I live in Portland, so what I'm talking about will increase my rates potentially. But in terms of equity
Excuse me,
across...
Councillor Ring, just speak through the chair, thank you. Not the councillors, thank you.
I'm speaking to the microphone.
I've just been asked by the General Manager to tell you to speak to the chair, thank you.
Oh, sorry, who's running the meeting?
Not you.
No, and obviously not you by the sounds of it.
Point of order. Come on.
Withdraw the statement.
No, you don't withdraw the...
No, I can withdraw it, and I do apologise.
I will rule on it, and what you just said is unforgiving, so don't say it again, thank you. Such a good council up until this councillor...
Oh.
Point of order, Mayor, that's uncalled for either. Can we have some decorum? Look, let's let the councillor have his say, and then once he's done, he's done.
Now, rates of harmonisation, if done properly and implied over a number of years, can result in a far fairer and more equitable contribution of rates, particularly in the residential sectors. That's all I've got to say at this stage.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. I have a different concern in regards to this particular recommendation. It's quite confusing. At the start of the recommendation, it states weed management strategies. And then the second part of the recommendation, it states special rate variation. And then on the last point, it states rate harmonisation. That's my biggest concern in regards to this particular recommendation. I find it confusing, I find it messy, especially point 6. Like, you look at the recommendation itself, we're talking about implementing weed management strategies, and then you look at point 2, we're looking at adopting the draft operational plan, including the special rate variation. But the issue I have with this whole report is the fact that we're talking about rate harmonisation opportunities. That is something that we haven't spoken to with the community. Some don't understand what rate harmonisation means. Some people think they may pay more. Some people may think they may pay less. My issue in this report is rate harmonisation opportunities. That's my whole concern, and I am very concerned for the residents in Portland and very concerned for the residents of Luwerawang who don't understand what rate harmonisation opportunities mean, and we need to take that out to the community before we actually even think about implementing it. But the recommendation itself I find confusing and messy.
Councillor Coleman, I'm not just sure, I'm a little confused. You were seconding Councillor Ring's motion. That had nothing to do with what you've just spoken about.
That's okay. I'm talking about the original recommendation. The reason I second it, General Manager's nodding at me, he understands what I'm talking about. So I seconded it for the purpose of debate, and then I chose to talk about the original recommendation, why I chose to second that rate. And my biggest issue is rate harmonisation.
Anybody else wishing to speak on this subject?
Yeah, I'd like to speak against this motion. After 18 months of information sessions and a lot of detail gone into, in the whole process that has gone to IPART, and it is certainly anything but tick a box. The amount of information that must be supplied to IPART for an SRV or special rate variation to actually go through is extensive, to say the least. And the staff and council fulfilled those obligations. It's been a long road, and it's certainly not something that any of us are taking lightly. But the necessity of what we're doing has been proven beyond any shadow of a doubt to my mind. And I do believe to the majority of people who have come to information sessions, rationally asked questions and listened to rational answers. And the equity comes in the spreading of the rate base and the rating of quarries and mines who have been approached in a manner where they have come to the party and come to the table willingly. And it's been good news. And I think that for the council to go ahead, it's been left so long for these tough decisions to be made that we've been left with no alternative. And we just have to bite the bullet. We really need to do this.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie?
Okay. I share the concerns of Councillor Ring and Councillor Coleman relating to the harmonisation of rates. It is something I've looked at along the way. I don't claim in any way to be an expert in this. but I do believe that we needed to have this conversation about rate harmonisation with the community, and I understand the recommendations holding that open, I believe, but we certainly need to go and have that conversation, because there will be communities like Portland and Wallerawang who are probably going to be faced with some of the more consequential outcomes of that potentially. So I'd certainly like to see that conversation initiated with them. Also thank the speakers who came along and to talk tonight, and I want to get a better understanding of what Mr. Barnett was talking to. There seems to be, if I can describe it, I'm not trying to be theatric here, but a perverse outcome where we've had one area that's had a significant increase in the rates. If I'm taking it on face value, where someone is ending up at a 68% increase, that's a significant outcome for them. Whether the options that were discussed by Mr. Barnett, and I'm happy to get advice from the staff in relation to looking at the ad valorem rates, and whether there's some ability to look at equity issues there, if as is what is being presented is correct. So I suppose I'm posing a question there for you, Mayor, if I could get some clarification on that.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. The General Manager will speak to that. Thank you.
Just to deal with the issue of harmonisation that's referenced in recommendation number 6 to this report. Recommendation number 6, though, there's a suite of recommendations here that work together, and I won't unpack all of them. Or perhaps for the sake of it, I will. Number 1 merely records that we've listened to the submission and it's proposing an amendment to the operational plan that wasn't canvassed in the consultation. So we're listening to the community and feeding that additional action into the operational plan. I then go down to the harmonisation issue. Point number 6 is really saying that we don't rely upon a rate increase alone. In fact, from the outset, we've communicated to the council and then the community that there are 5 pillars for financial sustainability. And just one of those, which was picked up in the rate review, is harmonisation. So we have a range of residential subcategories. We have one for Lithgow, which Marangaroo is in. We have one for Portland, and we have one for Wallerawang. Traditionally, Wallerawang and Portland have a lower ad valorem rate, which has the effect that they pay slightly less. And our rating review acknowledged that, and this point 6 is indicating that in the year ahead we'll come back to the council and study rate harmonisation, where we would look to agglomerate those as one category. They're all residential, they all receive comparable services, but there's an historical small disparity. Now, there may be good bases for that, and we need to look at it very carefully, because when you adjust a rate for one of those subcategories, or you bring them all together, what that inevitably does is it has implications, because the total pool sourced from those 3 categories when brought together has to be redistributed. So we have to look at it very carefully, that it doesn't have a perverse outcome where there are beneficiaries and others that are more vulnerable with less capacity to pay that then pick up that. One of the principles of rating is that the rates are struck, and it's not a pure science, but the land value is a proxy for capacity to pay. And in the case of Mr. Barnett and Marangaroo, I observe that in Marangaroo, in the last 3 years, for 87 properties, there's been a total increase in value of $22 million. So those properties have escalated significantly. And if anything, it's that land revaluation that is escalating their rate. But for every one of those 87 people at that top end in the high value properties, there's also others that have moved slower, or in fact might have had negative growth. So this is a very fine act that we need to play. And therefore we're proposing that we explore harmonisation, that we accompany that with a capacity to pay study. We look at the implications for all sectors, as we did with the rate review, those most vulnerable and least able to pay, through to those most able to pay, and we look at a range of scenarios. It is a body of work that the council needs to work through very carefully. It's a body of work that we would very much consult the community on.
If I could continue, thank you for the answer. Look, to me, it's clearly a broken system when we get these results where it becomes based on asset value rather than earnings. So at local government level, we've got a distorted way we collect, I'll call it a tax. In other sectors, we'll either recover it through cost recovery or through our earnings. My concern is that we don't end up with situations where people on very low incomes in high value assets, which anyone who's, and it's a lot of people who lived here intergenerationally, but certainly anyone that's lived here for the last 20 years, when you could walk in the door in 2000 and buy a semi-detached or for 45,000, a standalone house for 70, and 2 terraces in Inch Street for 133,000. Those values of those properties have gone up. The earnings of the individuals in them may not have, and in fact may decrease. So that's one of the challenges for us, and this is one of the concerns that's been brought forward by the Speaker, where we've got people sitting in escalating assets but don't have the increasing earnings. And I actually don't agree that a high value asset means high capacity to pay, because I know plenty of people who live in houses that were their parents or they bought early. So I appreciate that. So I'm not sure what mechanics we've got to review these things as we go along, whether we've got things that can help adjust that equity in my mind.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. I spoke and voted against the SRV when it came to council some months back. Councillor Coleman spoke and voted against the SRV when it came to council some months back. We were the only two who did so. I understand Councillor Ring's frustration at looking at this SRV, but that's the consequences of not winning a space on this council at the last council election. He wasn't here to be able to speak to it at the time, and he's...
Point of order. The information he's saying is not relevant. I'll base that on page 4 of the IPART report, where it states clearly that council can defer rate increases up to this maximum amount up to 10 years. We encourage the council to consult with its community to decide how best to implement the increase.
Excuse me, Councillor Ring. Councillor Leslie was just stating a fact, not anything other than the fact.
Excuse me, I called a point of order.
Well, I'll overrule the point of order because Councillor Leslie, please let him speak.
Then I'm going to move a motion of dissent. Regardless of whether or not I sat here during the debate as an elected councillor now, regardless, I have the right to voice an opinion. And that is what this is about. His comments were not relevant. Excuse me, motion of dissent, you have to debate me, and then it goes to a vote to the councillors.
I'll put it straight to the council. You've already spoken and you've already debated it. We know very clearly that you don't want Councillor Leslie to continue. So I'll put it to the
Excuse me, that's misleading. I don't want Councillor Leslie to take a stance which implies because I wasn't here, that's what happens when you don't get on council. I'm here now.
Have a seconder. I'll put it to the vote. A vote of dissent from Councillor Ring. Anybody going to second that?
Anybody want those for it?
That just gets that.
I'll just put the vote then. All those in favour of the dissent vote? Lost. Against, please. Thank you. Overruled. Continue, Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr. Statham. Well, it is the disadvantage of not winning an election that you aren't able to vote when the matters come forward. Now, Councillor Coleman and I would have liked to have put in a rescission motion, but there were only the two of us, and you do need 3 people to put in a rescission motion. It's now gone to IPART. The government has approved it, and we now have to again, Councillor Coleman and I, we have spoken on this matter because, being the only two who spoke and voted against it, we now have the position of trying to work out what we consider to be the best for our community. And when the motion, the original, because I suspect this, I won't do it at this stage, but I suspect this particular motion of Councillor Rings will go down. And when the original motion, the one that Councillor Goodwin has foreshadowed, is put, Councillor Coleman and I have an amendment we wish to put to it, and I think it's our attempt to try and ameliorate a position that we believe is unreasonable and unfair, but that's the way it is. It's difficult, but that's the way it is, and so I will be voting against Councillor Ring's motion at the moment, and when Councillor Goodwin's motion, I will speak again on the matter.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against the motion? Right of reply, Councillor Ring, please.
Thank you, Mayor Stephen. As I read out, regardless of whether or not the motion of dissent was lost, IPART are very clear in that it is the role of the councillors to determine how the approved rate is applied and over what period it is applied. It is an opportunity for this council to show some sort of support for our community to say, yes, it may be a bad situation, but we're going to make an effort to at least accommodate you. Now, in terms of rate harmonisation, I don't think asking for a simple report to come back in 3 months outlining what rate harmonisation is and what opportunities there are. It's not about determining it, but just putting something out so people understand it. I don't think that's unreasonable, to at least give people in this community some hope that there might be some light at the end of the tunnel. Yes, the belief is, and the policy of government, if you've got a very expensive house, got expensive land, you can afford to pay more rates. Unfortunately, we live in an ageing population. Our community is ageing. The Marangaroo Field subdivision originally was rated as a residential rural, and at some stage in the past was changed into the Lithgow residential. The Marangaroo Fields area does not get the same level of services as Lithgow. There are no gutters, there's poor drainage, it was a poorly developed development in its day. But that's up to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried, thank you. Definitely not carried. Councillor Goodwin.
Mayor Statham, I'd like to move a motion that we, or my foreshadowed motion to move back to the original motion that was put to council in item 10.5.2.
Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor McGee.
I have an amendment.
Yes, Councillor Coleman.
I'll wait till the movers. I'm happy to do my amendment now. Would you like that?
Yes, happy to do that.
I have an amendment to, I'd like a point 7. I'd like to move that point 7, that all of the extra monies received from the residential, farming and business rating categories as a result of the SRV be reserved for expenditure on the repair, maintenance and construction of Lithgow City Council's roads, footpaths and drains.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman.
I'd also like to incorporate a point, I'd like to remove point 6 and have a report come back in regards to harmonisation.
Sorry, could you just repeat that, please, Councillor Coleman?
Sorry, Mayor Statham, I'd also like I'd like to remove point 6 and adopt the former point from Councillor Ring in regards to a report regarding harmonisation.
Pardon?
Did you want to speak on that, Craig?
You can in the first instance, yeah. Ross needs to speak to that.
Uh,
Do we invite him to speak to it?
I'd just like to invite Mr Ross Gurney, our Chief Financial Officer, please, to speak to that.
Through you, Mayor Statham. Just on the proposed point 7 regarding the extra income being spent on roads, all of it being spent on roads, footpaths and drains, that would be inconsistent with the conditions of approval of the SRV by IPART, which included that council use the additional income for the purpose of funding the proposed program, which in other words is as per the application where we split it in accordance with the program that's in the report.
So can I ask a question through you, Mayor Statham, if I may?
Yes, certainly.
Then if that's the case, can I state that I'd like to use the same amendment for the next report? Is that also out of order?
Do you mean for the next
item? Yeah.
We've got to deal with this one first.
I'll withdraw that amendment and I'll come back.
All right, thank you. So now,
So that's withdrawn, so Daryl's got the, Councillor Goodwin's got the first round.
yes, Councillor Goodwin, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Statham. Listen, I'm not a subject matter expert in any of this, and I'll leave that to the subject matter experts. And I did sit through all of the meetings that all the other councillors sat through, and I did make an informed decision of what we were to do through the IPART system and through all of this process. It's been a long and arduous process and many meetings with finance experts, lots of debate at information sessions, public meetings and personal meetings with people. 2 weeks ago, IPART released its decision to allow Lithgow Council to increase the rates by the full amount of the 45.7 on land valuations, and Lithgow has limited the increase to residential, business in general and farming to 27.7. That includes the 3.7 rate peg. What locals in the LGA should see in the coming 12 months are not just limited to these items, but enhanced evidence-based asset management, transport maintenance programs, sealed road conditions, levels 2, 3 and 4 on preventative maintenance on those, high-risk road safety signage and barrier improvements, diverting water away from roadways, urban curb and guttering replacements, 2 to 3 times that is existing program, rural roadside drains reformation, natural area management projects, the fast track by 12 months of asset management plan, stormwater and buildings, comprehensive building asset inspection, capacity building, transition management, proposed RV program, governance, risk and internal audit, capacity improvement, business improvement, including service planning and other budget bids initiatives focused on improving productivity. The LEAP Priority Action Fund, which includes Adaptive Skills Hub, surplus operating results before capital, funds to be held in a reserve for future stocks, road renewals, Sunny Corner Road, Portland from Sofala to Falnash Street, Corduroy Place in Wang, Brays Lane to Wallerawang, Blackberry Lane. These are just to name a few of the road renewals. Stormwater drainage renewals, action priority, playground safety, large softfall, accelerate the reduction of plant replacement with a backlog down from 10 years to 6 years, and plan to upgrade the roads in the LGA using these funds. This recommendation that I've gone back to, we'll see all that done, and we'll see roads roads being done in and around Lithgow. So I believe that that this recommendation is a good recommendation to deliver those programs, and that's what Lithgow should be looking out for in the next 12 months.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor McGee.
Yes, very much along the lines of what Councillor Goodwin was just saying. You know, the list is extensive. We went through it at the Operations Committee meeting recently, and the allocations of the monies to come are formidable. The change will be formidable. People will notice the change because it's been let go so long that the improvements, just in morale alone amongst staff, is already tangible. And to see the list of improvements in the pipeline already it's just uplifting. It's like when you used to see councils when I was a child, you know, they had the SMIC machinery, they had good people, you know, everyone was proud to work there. And that's what I see coming to Lithgow. I really do. And I'm very proud to be a part of it.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else wishing to speak for or against this? Councillor Leslie?
Thank you, Ms. Statham. I'd like to just take an exception to what our Chief Financial Officer has stated, that we can't do it. I'd like to quote a higher authority, if I may, which is the IPART Chair, Carmel Donnelly, which states in this report, she stated, "We note that within the total rates revenue approved by IPART, it remains the responsibility of councillors to set rates in a way that takes into account the circumstances of their constituents." Now, I think that the motion, that the amendment that Councillor Coleman has moved is precisely that. We're taking the money and determining how it should be set, how it should be expended, and what we're arguing is that all the extra money raised from the farming, business, and residential categories of this city from the SRV be exclusively spent on the construction and maintenance of roads, drains, and footpaths. What is it that the people of this town tell you every time they talk about it, wherever you meet them? They talk about the road outside their house. They talk about the roads they travel on. They talk about the footpaths that are rough, that elderly people have trouble with. This is what, and of course, you just have to listen to Councillor Marnie to understand, you know, the problems that Lithgow Council has with its drains. You have anyone living in Muscat Parade and Enfield Avenue and Main Street down near Bunnings knows these problems. This is what, you know, the councils that have to do. This is what we are elected to help, to make sure that these issues, we can't change the rates because that, as I said, that's we can't change the rate amount because that's done and dusted. But what we can do with this is council to make sure that we get value for our money, that the people of, you know, the citizens of our town, the ratepayers of our city, can be of you know, get value. And now I'll test this. I'll remove the amendment that Councillor Coleman has just withdrawn. I'll remove that. I will again move that, and I, of course, if after the General Manager advises you wish to rule it out of order, so be it. But I think that the matter needs to be put to this council body.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. The General Manager would like to speak to that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. You're right, Councillor Leslie. The Chair of IPART does make that comment, but that comment refers to the discretion the Council has is temporarily in terms of the time frame when and how to introduce the SRV. There is a direction, a set of conditions that are specifically attached to the approval for the SRV, and that's the one that Mr. Gurney read out. So the funds must be used in accordance with that program. That's what we've gone to the community with. That's what we've gone to IPART with. The Chair's comment goes to when you implement the SRV. So the very specific, council is limited and not able to vary that. It would strike down potentially the whole thing. But I wanted to, if you don't mind, if I could pivot off your point and just return to Councillor Coleman's request. And we hear that. We know that we've still got a significant challenge. The maintenance and renewal of assets are our most significant challenge, and I commend the council for walking up to that today. But I remind the council, I'm looking at it's the next report that I found it, but there's a section there on page 10 which talks about the Capital Works program, and I'm just looking at that, and it's showing that in 1920, the years 1920, we spent $12.8 million. In 2021, $11.7 million. In 21-22, $10 million. So let's average those, about $11 million annually on Capital Works. This year we're spending $32 million. And in next year's budget, we're spending $52 million on capital works. So that's, what's that, 400% more than we were doing in an average year 2 years ago. It's a massive program next year. It's a massive investment in renewal and maintenance, certainly much of it to do with disaster. But there is a major program out of the proposition that Councillor Coleman put to pull back some money out of the SRV and direct. The saving there would be 1.6 million. So we've got, how many years? We've got 20 years in 20 years of that 1.6 million that we're doing additionally just next year. But I think we take on board the council's want to do even more. And my encouragement is for the council to add to tonight's recommendation with the request that we continue to explore opportunities to additionally increase funding directed to asset renewal and maintenance. But next year, $52 million. $52 million. So I just wanted to make that point. I'm just dealing with it, So just, sorry, long way around there, but we're not able to tinker with the program. I believe we're making an outstanding contribution to Councillor Coleman, and I think Leslie was on side, with this proposition of really significantly increasing our maintenance and renewal of assets. We're doing 400% more next year than an average year. I'm profoundly worried about getting through that program. We're only going to get it because we're outsourcing some of that to Public Works to deliver. But the job's not done. Next year, we've got another year with this council. We need to keep the focus down on how we can even increase maintenance and renewal further.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Thank you, Mr. General Manager.
Did Councillor Leslie finish his points there? Did you want to say more?
Have you finished, Councillor Leslie? Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I'm pleased that the administration is actually listening in this matter to us, and again, it would require you to, after having heard the General Manager's comments, to either accept or rule my amendment out of order.
We would prefer not to call it out of order, but it would certainly not be right for us to accept that, Councillor Leslie. But it would threaten the package, but we do value your interest and we do value your comments, the same as Councillor Coleman. Right of reply, Councillor Goodman.
Sorry, one last thing. With that gracious comment from the Mayor, I will actually withdraw the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. We appreciate that. Thank you. Councillor Coleman.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Statham. I actually haven't
Councillor Coleman, sorry to interrupt. Are you undertaking a right of reply? Because I still wanted to speak.
I'm
No,
not.
no,
I didn't
no.
move it, Councillor
No.
Marnie. I'm actually speaking in opposition to the recommendation in total now. If I may, Mayor Statham,
Yes,
please.
certainly.
I appreciate the General Manager's comments and I thank you for them. I'm glad that you are listening and it is appreciated. It won't go unnoticed. I was torn in regards to this recommendation. Yes, Councillor Leslie and I did originally vote against the SRV and I stand by that opinion that I gave and I stand by that vote. My greatest concern in regards to this recommendation, and I know that it has been mentioned several times, is rate harmonisation. It hasn't been explained. Makes me very nervous. It's first we see it is in this report, and the next thing you know, we're having to vote on it. We need to make sure the community understands, and I don't think that they do. I've fielded several phone calls today in regards to this one particular issue, and it really, really concerns me. I also, as I said previously, have concerns with this whole recommendation. The beginning of the recommendation, we're talking about Macquarie County Council and gap analysis and weeds and so forth. And the next thing we know, we're talking about operational plan and harmonisation opportunities. It greatly concerns me. I'm sorry, but I just cannot vote for this.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. The General Manager would like to speak to that. Thank you.
I recognise it's a complex matter, through you, Mayor, and speaking directly to your concern, Councillor Coleman. The administration is not doing anything with harmonisation other than acknowledging that there are 3 subcategories of residential, and we intend to bring a report back to the council for consideration of whether there is a better arrangement, whether they should be agglomerated or not, and what would be the consequence. So it's merely signalling that we would start a major project which will run through next year. There'll be many engagements with the council, and only if the council decides to do anything to harmonise or integrate those rates, or well, then it would go to the community for consultation also. We're just signalling it's a piece of undone work. It's the same as the other 4 pillars. And we need to continuing to advocate to the national government for greater increased funding to local government. We need to advocate to the state government for increased funding for economic transition. We need to get our house in order, and we need to look at these 3 categories and see if that's still appropriate today. Because at first blush, they seem to get similar services, but we have to overlay whether they deserve different rates based upon other factors such as capacity to pay or something else. But nothing goes out unless the council decides to revisit that policy, and then it has public consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie?
Okay. Been quite a pathway to where we got to. I do share the concerns that Councillor Coleman and Councillor Ring have brought forward around harmonisation. I don't wish to keep moving through that conversation, but it's clearly a process that needs to have an extended period with the community and explain exactly what's going on. I do want to get a better understanding of what do we do with situations when we clearly get a fairly unequal outcome. One of the big concerns for me in consideration was capacity to pay. There's almost a hardship bracket creep which is going well into the community that previously we thought it was people who only earned very low incomes, but we're finding increasingly we've got people on moderate incomes that are under significant financial stress. I'm concerned about, I don't agree with the concept that a highly valued asset makes for someone's capacity to pay. It often means they need to dispose of an asset and move into a different property, which is not always the life plan for people. I thank Councillor Ring for thinking about possibilities, how we might ease the burden and looking at those options of staged. The thing for me was that we need to have a contract with the community. and that's always been something that's been very important to me. It's got to be transparent, it's got to be deliverable, and it's got to be accountable. Now, when I go into the report, it's where we first start to see some of that contract with the community, where we talk about specific road systems that are going to get renewed. We talk about a standard that we're going to maintain to. The big thing for me is we don't have the asset management plans. It's like owning a fleet of cars, and someone says, how many cars do you own? I don't know. I think it's about 12, but I own 15. What's their service requirements? What's their replacement? All of that stuff is not there yet, but it is on the way. I get some visibility that the community don't get, and I acknowledge the staff for their work on the asset management planning. We do need to deal with the issues that Councillor Leslie spoke to about stormwater infiltrating sewer in East Mort Street, Tank Street, up in the Extension Estate. People are getting their neighbours' sewer delivered to them directly into their houses. That is never okay. It's a public health issue, and we need to address those, and we need to get the fundamentals right. We've got to be careful of becoming moths being attracted to the light about shiny new objects, or even worse, being attracted to the flames and ending up sending us into a spot where we've already come out of, where for 10 years we ran operational deficits. I can't kick that can down the road and say to another community in another 2 terms that, look, we found it a bit of a tough decision, so we skipped past this and made an easier decision, and here it is. As Mr. Vangelidis spoke to, there's someone another 5 years down the road that has to pick up the can. I know I won't be popular by supporting this, but the key to my support remains that we have to have a planned and we have to have a material outcome out of this. If we don't, we all deserve to walk. Maybe not those who didn't vote for it, but if we don't deliver on it, we've got to be accountable for it. And I have some confidence that we will get there. I don't believe we can spend all of the money on stormwater and roads and footpaths because there's other asset groups that are in steep decline. We don't want to get to them when they're busted and then try and rebuild the whole show. So, yeah, I found the debate, and I'm sure the community found the debate somewhat confusing. I sit with Councillor Coleman and Councillor Ring in that we need to deal with the harmonisation. I understand the first point needs to go into the delivery and operational plan and understand the detail and the very important nature of it. I think it would be useful for us to get a report back separately on that issue if it was possible. But otherwise, that's all I want to say. I just want to explain how I've made my decision.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie, and I'm sure there would be a staff person now that will take notes and deliver a report to you in the very near future. Right of reply. Councillor Bryce?
I just want to say I support this rate rise. I'd like to start by emphasising the Council has taken a number of measures to reduce the impact of the increase. These measures mean that the increase for the residential, farmland and business general categories, which capture more than 99% of the rateable properties, will increase by 27.7. Even after this increase of average rates, this still will be the same as those of other comparable councils in our situation. Morrison Law's assessment of capacity to pay found that the Lithgow Council residential rates, when compared to similar regional city councils in the Group 4 classification, are currently the lowest on average. The review also found that residential rates are estimated to be the average of about $4 per week higher than they would be under the normal rate increase. This means that the average residential rates will still rank towards the lowest amongst similar regional city councils. Also, the SRV is subjected to close examination by IPART, which assessed such applications against 6 criteria that have been set by New South Wales Government. The criteria are a financial need, community awareness, reasonable impact on ratepayers, integrated planning and reporting documents, productivity improvements and cost containment. IPART determined the Council's application met all these criteria. So I believe that the independent expert have said that Lithgow's case is indisputable. We inherited this issue. We inherited when the first week we started sitting on this council, we found out about this issue. Some say we would ignore it and kick it down the road, just like previous councils have done. Again, I quote from the report where the GM says, any delay to introducing the full approved 45.78 overall increase will impact council's financial without the SRV equivalent service reductions. Council also miss the compounding improvements in financial position and the ability to clear asset maintenance and renewal backlogs without the full SRV. This talks to what Councillor Marnie has said about the asset management. This would be an immediate imperative to cut services, and the high inflation environment, the council will likely to be unable to close the gaps between deterioration of assets and levels of funding needed to arrest this. As a result, service cuts would need to be increased every year. Even then, unacceptable levels of debt would flow to future generations, necessitating high increases to rates above those being advanced. As I said, we inherited this issue. We need to stem it now.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing? Sorry, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Goodwin. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Statham. I just want to thank all councillors for this robust debate, and there are major issues in and around town that we all know about. We all need to fix them, and this will help that. I also want roads to be upgraded, as does every other councillor here. I think the program does concentrate on roads to a very large part, and as a result of the increase, Lithgow Council has to report to the government for their checks and balances over the next 4 years. Council has to report on such things as the program of expenditure that was actually funded by the additional income, and any differences between this program and the proposed program, any significant differences between the council's actual revenues, expenses and operating balance, and the projected revenues, expenses and operating balance as outlined in the long-term financial plan, and the reasons for those differences, the outcomes achieved as a result of the additional incomes, the productivity savings and the cost containment measures the council has in place, the annual savings achieved through these measures, and what these savings equate to as a proportion of the council's total annual expenditure, and whether or not the council has implemented the productivity improvements identified in this application, and if not, the rationale for not implementing them. Council will now have the funds to deliver on essential programs, plan for the future and meet the needs for the community. With the financial burden lifted, in a sense, Lithgow Council will step up to the plate and continue to have the community interests as a whole at the forefront of their operations. I wanted to talk about the harm minimisation that we're all talking about, and in point 6, to me it says it's only a consideration of rates, that there will be an ongoing consideration of rate harmonisation opportunities. So we're just going to be considering them. I don't see a problem with that, where we sit down and we can talk about it and we can come to a rational agreement, or not an agreement. So after all of that, I endorse the recommendation 10.5.2 put before council for making the rates and charges of the 23-24 year.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. So for the secretaries for Trinity, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring and Councillor Leslie have voted against this. A division, thank you. The same, thank you. Against, thank you. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring and Councillor Leslie. I'll declare that carried, thank you. The next item Councillor Ring has asked to come forward is item...
I'd like to move with 2 additional points, please, Mayor Statham.
So for the
point of order, may I suggest that a procedural motion myself and that we bring my motion forward?
No,
No. I understand the families in the audience and they do need to go to school tomorrow, but we need to be on 10.5.3. Thank you. Making rates and annual charges for 2023-24. Councillor Ring, could you repeat that? Thank you.
No, can you sit down before he talks?
Could you just please take your seat first? Thank you.
I'd like to add two additional points. Point 2, that the special parking rate levy identified in the fees and charges for Lithgow CBD be withdrawn effective 1st of July 2023. Point 3, that fees for footpath trading permits as outlined on page 31 of the fees and charges documents are suspended for 2 years. All other points just to change their ordering number.
Sorry, can we just have that on the screen before we do anything else?
Yes, thank you. Please. Could you just enlighten Trinity, please, Councillor Ring? She doesn't understand. Apologies for the delay. There's just some confusion about an issue. Or just might be one moment. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, could I have a point of clarification? Is the item we're now debating, which is printed on page 15, making of rates and annual charges, the same, exactly the same, as the late item we received, which is also called the making of rates and annual charges? Are they identical, or should we be dealing with one piece of paper or the other?
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Mr Gurney will answer your question.
Through you, Mayor Statham, they are exactly the same. The only difference is the item numbers, that they had to be reordered.
So, Councillor Ring, if you could just repeat what you moved, thank you. Right, but I think just repeat it for the people listening on live streaming. Thank you.
Okay, that council 1, adopt the maximum rate of interest payable on overdue rates and charges for the period 1 July 2023 to 30 June 2024 inclusive as 9% per annum. 2, the special parking rate levy identified in the fees and charges for Lithgow CBD be withdrawn effective 1st July 2023. 3, that fees for footpath trading permits as outlined on page 31 of the fees and charges documents are suspended for 2 years. 4, adopt the following integrated planning reporting IPR documents: A, fees and charges; B, revenue policy; C, rating maps. 5, declare a category and subcategory of ordinary rate for each proposed category and subcategory set out in columns 2 and 3 of the rates categorisation table in this report on the corresponding basis set out in column 4 of the table. 5.
We changed it.
6. Yeah, 6. Make the following rates and annual charges for the 2023-24 rating year as detailed in the 2023 revenue policy and as listed in the tables below.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Could I have a seconder for that? Thank you.
Well, just before we do that.
Mr. General Manager will speak to that. Thank you.
I feel that I should speak to it because coming so late, that amendment does cause some concerns, and it really requires some clarification. Just to explain the special parking rate levy, if we call it that, I'm not sure that's its exact title, but it was a former SRV specific to that sourced from the Lithgow Main Street businesses by and large. And so, like the last SRV that we discussed, it has conditions which tie how it is used, but also it sits inside what's called our notional income. So we would have to get some advice. One, if we could depart from that program, suspend it altogether, or under one scenario, it could mean that that income needs to move on to other parties to deliver. So we'd have to acquire it from other parties than from those Main Street businesses. To help the council with this, we currently use that amount of money, which is around $260,000, something like that, for street sweeping in Main Street, for maintenance of the lighting in Cook Plaza, for the banners in Main Street, but also in years going forward, Council resolved to allocate that fund as our contribution to the Main Street pavement rehabilitation. So we're actually using that rate to get significant leverage from government grant funding. So it's a co-contribution, a small co-contribution towards that. So I don't like to be the bad guy, but there are some problems at this late juncture with just suspending that parking rate because it compromises Main Street. We'd have to find that money elsewhere, but it would also reduce street sweeping, maintenance of banners in Cook Plaza. So I share that with the council. If it's the council's will to stop it, we may be able to find a way, but I can't answer on the run whether that would have the effect of moving that expense onto others. To my mind, it seems like it's fairly discreetly tied to those businesses that benefit. Perhaps the council might like to take some advice and deal with it in a subsequent year.
Ms. Nathan, can I foreshadow a motion?
Yes.
To move back to the original motion if this motion does not get up.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin.
So we just need a
Does
second.
Councillor Ring have a seconder? Thank you. Right, so that motion lapses.
No, I'll second a debate. I think there's some important
Thank you,
issues
Councillor
in there.
Marnie. Councillor Coleman, you no?
No,
Yeah,
no,
right. Councillor Marnie.
No, Councillor Ring.
Sorry, Councillor Ring.
Special parking rate, the resolution just referred to on page 4 of the document we're given, was raised in 2018. It was raised by me for a number of businesses, wanted to know what it was for. It was originally levied to pay off loans for parking in the CBD. Those loans were paid off years ago. I would have assumed that the council, putting a rate increase of 54.3% onto all businesses, would have looked at and considered removing this fee. These businesses are paying for additional. We have had grants, and I think it's unfair on those businesses. As Mr. Evangelidis, I think I said that right, said earlier, we are going into difficult times moving forward. We're going into a severe inflationary cycle. These businesses are doing it tough. The other issue is that of footpath trading to suspend for 2 years. We have a significant grant for doing the Main Street up, the footpath pavers. The last time significant works were done, the last councillors here from the last council will know that disruption to businesses was significant. We have a LEAP document out on public commentary which talks about placemaking, about revitalising Main Street, about having people eat in Main Street. These fees, although they may not appear significant, with significant work coming up in the future, I believe suspending them for 2 years is a show of good faith for the business community. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Marnie. Sorry.
I'm on.
I couldn't hear, sorry.
No, it just flashed up green. It's red now. So I raised this issue with some of the conditional support I brought for the rates. I'm a believer in economic transition has to happen at all scales, and I appreciate what Councillor Ring's saying, that we are going through a changed economic environment. Has changed even in the time we've been having conversations as far as some of the inflationary, the raise in interest rates, the reduction of people's discretionary expenditure. Small-scale high street retail is not travelling well. It has to be part of our economic transition. It won't all be led by industry, and I think it's, and I understand the complications when you take one income stream and you have to replace it with another. But I see this as part of the economic transition and how we manage that. So I'd support both those points you put through. I have an issue. The other side of some of the conditions I brought forward is capacity to pay. Now, I have concerns, and I've raised these concerns about bringing an interest rate of up to 9% on debt. So when we have people in debt, and I'm fortunate not to live from week to week, so I've got to make sure that I'm seeing the people in my community do. When you get into $500, $900 worth of debt, and it's going up by nearly 10%, you start to get into a cycle, and it's not that far off the low end of credit cards. So I think we do have to have a mechanism to protect those people from those escalating debts, which become a major problem in our community. I would ask, perhaps, as a pathway forward, that the financial hardship policy be brought back to council, be reviewed and brought back to council, to ensure that we've got stop points to not allow people who are in genuine hardship to be finding themselves going deeper and deeper into that dark space. So I think this is a time when we need to think about our capacity to pay. I also believe that for our community development programs, we need to look at supporting and partnering with projects from our community to assist people in those financial stress points. So I see the small businesses. My wife ran a small business on Main Street. It's a tough gig out there at the moment, and I actually support Councillor Ring's suggestions to alleviate that, even if only for a couple of years with the street insurance costs.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing? Councillor Coleman?
I too support this recommendation. The council is collecting monies for the good of the greater Lithgow community. And part of the greater Lithgow community are the business houses, which are currently doing it tough. We've had, 12 interest rate hikes. We are dealing with a cost of living crisis. Families are going grocery shopping and looking at what they don't put in their trolley. They're not spending money down the main street or at Coles. We're having business close. We really need to provide them with support and relieve some pressure. And it needs to be remembered that they are part of the community. Supporting them is supporting community. My greatest concern is that we need to limit the ongoing pressure to businesses. And businesses are also families. There's a lot of family-run businesses. I remember this debate came back in 2018. I was only a new councillor back then, and I remember thinking we needed to support businesses back then and back in 2018. My opinion hasn't changed. I also am pleased to see in the report, and I'll go off on a tangent here if I may, that pensioners' concession will be increased to $300. That is supporting our vulnerable, and I'm really pleased to see that in the report. I will end with this. My greatest concern is communication with the most vulnerable in our business houses. And it doesn't matter that we've been communicating constantly these past few months. Our residents deserve not only communication, they deserve understanding and they deserve empathy.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anybody else wishing to speak for or against this? Councillor Goodwin.
Ms. Statham, through you, can I ask a question in relation to outdoor dining and fees? And how much do we take from outdoor dining and fees, and where does that money go to?
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. The General Manager will speak to that. Thank you.
I'd have to take that on notice and provide that by way of memorandum, but I don't know if I made it clear enough, but recommendation 3 doesn't cause the administration too much of an issue. In fact, we're reaching out and dealing with the shopkeepers. So the background is that Council's infrastructure area just recently wrote to the shopkeepers to advise them of our policy that a footpath trading permit's required. We've got some concerns come back about that, so we're working with them. It's an acceptable point. Number 3 is fine. The more fundamental concern is in relation to that special parking rate levy. I spoke to that. I did some sums while we've been speaking, and I'm in the council's hands, but we just voted on the SRV, but we're now diminishing that by 4% here. So it's really, it causes problems. It's difficult to unpack and the like.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Brock.
I agree with the amendment number 3. I met with the group that I'm in, the very Lithgow Main Street Revitalisation Group, and the concern on Wednesday night was the fees and charges for the footpath trading permit. It was brought to our attention, which was then brought to the attention of the Mayor and stuff. That is a major concern for our shops.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against?
I'll move an amendment, if I may.
Councillor Leslie, your amendment?
That point 2 of this current resolution be deleted.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Thank you, Councillor Leslie.
In speaking to it, I heard the General Manager's comment about the revitalisation of Main Street, the necessity for a co-contribution from shopkeepers. They will be the ones who will benefit from a revitalisation. I believe that it's a valuable responsibility of this council, and I believe that the shopkeepers should continue to contribute to it.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Bryce.
I agree with Councillor Leslie on that point. I think 3 should be removed and, 2 should be removed and 3 stay in place. That was the only concern that we had with the shopkeepers the other day, so I'm happy to support that motion.
Anybody else wishing to speak for or against this?
Yes, I'd like to speak against it. Thank you, Mayor Statham. Well, you're moving an amendment. I'm speaking against your amendment. Sorry, apologies. Yes, it may cause some difficulty for the administration. That's what they're paid money for. We're here to represent the interests and benefits of our community. These businesses have been charged to levy for decades. It was originally put in place to pay off debts for car parking. When this was brought back to council in 2018, no one knew anything about it or where the money had gone or what it had been spent for. I think the business owners in the CBD have more than paid their fair share.
Going against Leslie. So what do I do now?
No, it's just the debate. So Stuart wants to speak now. Councillor McGee.
Councillor McGee, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to say that we're looking towards the future here. We've got to stop dwelling in the past. It's really got to stop. This is all about the future and what is coming. I'm against both the amendment and the motion as it stands. I think it's too much to make a decision on tonight, because things like the footpath trading, okay, now it's not a big fee, but it's more like, to my mind, I would imagine that small fee is more to remind people of their OH&S obligations and safety obligations when they enter into a footpath trading scenario. You know, it's in the public interest that by paying a small amount, they become aware of their obligations in doing so. And it's not just a free-for-all, we can do that. It's as good as, but they should be aware of what is involved and their responsibilities when doing so. The same with the whole parking, you know, like it has been in for a long time. I've had people bring it up with me. And, you know, once again, it was for this, it was for that, but now it is for the future. And it's been taken into account in this year's budget. To just remove it just as a popularity grab is not a good idea, because
point of order. There's nothing about popularity grabs here, mate. You might want to characterise it as that, but
I'll withdraw that then.
Excuse me, point of order through the Mayor.
Right,
Thank you, Councillor Marnie.
This is about being very serious about the future of Lithgow.
Thank you, Councillor McGee.
Could I ask a question? The amendment, the motion deals with the payments being suspended. I understand that, but does it also mean that the responsibilities are suspended? That's my question.
Mr. General Manager, thank you.
No, the administration, picking up on Councillor McGee's suggestion, we have to ensure that the footpath trading is compliant and not bringing the public into harm's way. So we would still work with the shopkeepers to ensure they receive a permit, but there'd be no fee for that permit. If the amendment passes.
Anybody else wishing to debate this? I'll put the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? Against?
The amendment's carried.
It's carried. The amendment's carried. Thank you.
Call a division.
All those in favour say aye.
No, you need to call them out. You need to read them out.
Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Leslie.
Which way are you voting?
Yeah, I'm going to vote
The amendment.
for the amendment. Thank you.
And against?
Against? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring, Councillor McGee.
And Marnie.
And Councillor Marnie. Thank you.
So the amendment's carried.
The amendment's carried, thank you.
So we,
Now the amendment becomes the motion.
the amendment becomes the motion?
Yeah.
Amendment becomes the motion?
Yeah. The amendment becomes the motion now. Right of reply.
No, no.
Can you have a look at it on the screen, please?
You just need to put it. Amendment's carried. You just need to confirm it.
I'll put the motion now, thank you. All those in favour say aye.
Right of reply. Thank you, Mayor. Oh, sorry.
That's all right. I choose not to reply.
All those in favour? Are unanimous, thank you. The other request from Councillor Ring was 10.1. Could I have somebody move, please? We note this. Thank you. It's his affirmation.
No.
Is it 10.1?
10.51, the Remuneration Tribunal.
What page is that?
What page, Ross?
It's on page 11.
Page 11. Is it page 11?
Madam Chairman, 10.51. I'd like to move not the recommendation, but on page 14 that the 3 dot points at the top of page 14. Which is speaking to it the 3% increase in mayoral and councillor fees. Speaking to it, every person deserves a pay rise from time to time. The general manager had one recently. This is the amount that's recommended by the tribunal. That was the argument used for the general manager's pay rise, and I think that I move it.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. I need a seconder, thank you. Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Leslie. No? Sorry, Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, Mayor Staff, it's the minimum amount that it's recommended, so I agree with the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Anybody else wishing to speak to this? No?
Yes, Mayor Statham. Yes, people do deserve a pay rise, however, given the amount of rate increase we're putting on, I don't support it.
Thank you,
And I
Councillor.
wouldn't have supported the general manager getting a 3% pay rise either. If our politicians can take a pay cut and pay freeze, we can.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Anybody else? Any debate? Councillor
No,
Leslie, right of reply?
No, I'd like to speak.
Councillor Marnie?
I'm going to forego the increase, so I'm afraid I'm with Councillor Ring at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Leslie, right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Call a division.
Certainly. Call a division. All those in favour say aye. Everyone except Councillor Marnie and Councillor Ring. Against? Councillor Marnie and Councillor Ring. Thank you. Could we please now go back to the start of the agenda? Notice of motion, Councillor Stuart McGee, renaming of Inch Street. Thank you. Moving that, Councillor McGee, yes.
Happy to second.
Was that Councillor Bryce or Councillor Coleman? I have no idea.
It's going to be Pierce Lane.
Yes. No, Pierce's Lane.
Is it Pierce's Lane?
Pierce Lane.
Pierce Lane.
No.
I'll clarify that.
Okay.
That's-
Sorry, who seconded that? Councillor Coleman?
No, it's just Piers.
Councillor McGee?
Yes, it's a good news story for a change, and a well-deserved one. I think Emily did a fantastic job of, explaining why this is such a worthy naming, and Pierce Lane, just the straight surname of the family, is to be the name. And I think it's a very popular decision, and it's a good thing for the community, just to see people rewarded for years of community spirit and, just the good things that have happened to the town there. So that's about it. I think Emily summed it all up. Very well done.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mayor Statham. Firstly, congratulate George Pierce and Co. Earthworking and Engineering Works. It's, business is pretty tough in Lithgow, but 60 years, that needs to be acknowledged. So congratulations on that. Secondly, Emily's fourth generation. She shares that with my own children. My own children are fourth generation here in the Lithgow district. And I can understand completely how proud they would be of their grandfather. And if this is a little thing we can do, then why not? I fully support this recommendation, and I fully support this family.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Mayor
Councillor Bryce?
Stephen.
Councillor Bryce was in first. If you had her hand up.
I fully go with this motion. The fact that everyone that they interviewed along the lane that agreed to it is really pleasing. They've done their work, and it's a great outcome for the community.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Ring.
I have a question for you, Ms. Nathan, to the administration, just a procedural issue. My understanding, and I haven't had a time to actually check the procedures, but on memory, does this not have to go out to the public for comment before we can move it?
I think that's in the report, isn't it, Councillor?
No, it has to be in the resolution.
I did read it. Yeah. Mr. Edgecombe will speak to that. Thank you, Councillor Ring.
Through you, Mayor Statham, you are correct. Councillor Ring, it does need to be publicly exhibited, through which time the community would have the opportunity to comment and provide their comments through the administration, which will be then subsequently reported back to the council.
Yep. My question is to clarify, if I may. I do support the resolution, but my understanding from past practice was you needed a resolution to take it to the community.
Councillor Ring, if you see down on the last sentence on page 6 of 38, lastly, any road naming request must be subject to a community consultation period of 28 days.
My understanding that's the management comment. It's not a council resolution.
Mayor Statham, if I may, can I suggest to the mover that he does a point 2 and put in his recommendation that it goes out to the community for consultation for 28 days.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman.
Here,
It's in the report.
It's
in the report. So put it in the
recommendation. Yeah.
you have to do
Shall we
that,
put in a
Councillor
point
McGee?
2? Yes.
Thank you.
And as I said, I just wanted to clarify that so there's no comeback on the council. I fully support the resolution and acknowledging the family.
Thank you, Councillor Ring.
Mayor Statham, sorry. I also support the motion. I just want some clarification in relation to the naming of George Pierce Lane. Is that the name that they're going to use?
No, there is not many alternatives, Councillor Goodwin. It's Pierce Lane.
Pierce Lane.
Yes. You couldn't have the actual gentleman's name in it. It had to be
Right.
Pierce or George Lane. So
Yes, because I
Pierce
think that
Lane
came
is
up
the
in a
family's-
previous one that I'd tried to put through a number of years ago in relation to names.
Yes, remember.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Anybody else wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Marnie?
Just firstly, thanks to the girls for standing up, Emily. I'm nearly 60 and I still get nervous when I speak, so well done there, mate. Big thing for me with naming is that we capture some of the social history, and I thank Councillor McGee for working with the family and bringing that forward, and it captures some of our industrial history around that neighbourhood. When I first moved to Lithgow, I lived in the 2 terraces in Inch Street at 102 or 3 or 4, whatever it is, but and Pearce's has always been part of that and all the machinery there. So I think it's a great thing for capturing our social history, and I thank you, Councillor McGee, for working with the family to bring this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Any other debate? No? Right of reply, Councillor McGee? No?
No, all good.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. 9.2, notice of motion, Councillor Eric Marnie, Great Western Highway Management.
Happy to second.
Oh. Congratulations to the Pearce family. We thank you for all you've given to Lithgow, and you are free to leave if you would like to, but you're very welcome to stay. Yeah. Thank you very much. We should give him a clap. Oh, I thought that was him up the back. Yeah, it did. Oh my God, that's twice as made the little fella. Oh, there you presence. Oh dear. Councillor Marnie, you're going to move that?
Yes, please.
And I'm happy to second, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Marnie.
Just as we're seeing our town starting to evolve, particularly with some of the development on the western side of Lithgow, I think it's a moment in time just to review where that section of Great Western Highway between Magpie Hollow Road and through to James O'Donnell Drive, which is obviously named in an earlier stage of the geographic naming protocols, Rabal Street and the Great Western Highway. Now, there's an intensification of people living there, but we've also got an intersection which, as things are modernising, we've got an interplay with a school and school buses at Rabal with Larcell. We've also got potential increase in traffic coming out of Magpie Hollow and surrounds. So I'm asking for a report. I'm happy for it to come back through the Operations Committee. I appreciate there is significant work that goes into preparing full council reports. Also would like to ask a question, if it could be considered in the report, of whether we've entered in a highway maintenance contract with Transport for New South Wales, which many regional councils do. And in those situations, councils will maintain it for a fee. In other locations, it'll be a third-party private entity. So I know I'm asking this on without notice, so I'm happy to receive that back in the report, and also any improvements that are proposed for that section that it be brought back to the council for their support and endorsement.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Mayor Statham. I note in the management's comment that the Mayor during this term, which is your good self, has tried to address this situation. I'll make that note in that comment. Also in the management comment, it states that a report to council can more significantly canvass all of the above. So that tells me that this recommendation has the full support of the administration. What also it tells me is that it's very good of Councillor Marnie to bring this forward. We need to have this on the books. We need to be advocating strongly with Transport New South Wales, and we have a new minister. So if we cannot get through to the bureaucrats, we need to then go to the next level. It's really important that the image of our town and the transport and the road contracts are, my understanding, in good nick. And that's what my understanding this is all about. So, and it's very good of Councillor Marnie to put this on the books and advocate strongly for it and support the administration and yourself, the Mayor, in regards to this issue, which has been ongoing for years and years and years. So let's hope that we can get a resolution. If not, as I said, if we can't get anywhere with the bureaucrats, let's take it to the next level.
can I?
I'll just make one comment, Councillor Coleman. I must say that we have been very fortunate to meet with senior leadership team of Transport New South Wales, and I've met with the senior staff. We've had several meetings now, and I guess Mr Edgecombe may know when the next meeting is, but I certainly want it sooner than later. He knows that. We've been very diligent about this. Thank you. Councillor Bryce?
As part of the Tourism Committee that we talked about the other day, the entrance to our town is very important to attract tourism. At the moment, it's very shabby, and we're not going to attract anyone to our main streets or into our tourism unless we fix that road. So I'm pleased to back this and get this report going. And I know the Mayor has worked pretty hard as when she first started as Mayor this term. But we need that to keep pushing hard with that.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else
Mayor
wishing to speak?
Stephen, I support the proposal, but I'd like to put, if Councillor Mann is acceptable to it, an additional point.
Yes, your additional point,
The
Councillor.
additional point would be that a report be prepared by council outlining the cost of maintaining the medium strip on the highway from the commencement of the 1 kilometre zone to the first rail bridge heading west out of Lithgow. Yes. No, before Marangaroo. Yeah.
Look, I'm happy to include that if that forms some of the conversation around the informing the maintenance contract. Yep.
Sorry, back. Thank you, Councillor Ring. Yes, Councillor Mr Edgecombe, would you like to speak to that? Right. Right. Thank you. Right. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Excuse me, Councillor Stephen, would you like me to repeat it so that the staff can put it onto the
Yes, please, Councillor Ring.
That a report be prepared by council outlining the cost of maintaining the medium strip on the highway from the commencement of the 100 kilometre speed zone the 100 kilometre to the first rail bridge heading west out of Lithgow.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. You're happy to accept that, Councillor Marnie?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee?
Yes, absolutely. I support it. First impressions are everything. And to get people to turn off and to go down to the main street, we've got to have it looking better than it does. You know, it's got to be attractive and appealing. Also, to get these contracts and to know where we stand exactly will be very important, because it's always just been wishy-washy. No one seems to know exactly what's going on in the 18 months that I've been asking. So to have a full report on everything that's going on from here all the way up, it's fantastic. Totally supported.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Marnie.
Just briefly, Mayor, just pick up on Councillor Bryce and Councillor Coleman, just the acknowledgement of the work you've done to date on this issue with staff. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. 9.3, decision by the General Manager. Oh, sorry, getting a bit anxious. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, carried. Thank you. Decision by the General Manager not to include an item in the business paper. We don't need a mover and a seconder for that.
Yes, we do.
Oh, do we? All right. Have somebody move that, please. Councillor Bryce, seconder, thank you. Councillor Goodwin.
I have an amendment. I assume people don't want to speak to it. But I have an amendment, when I read it, that the council note the General Manager's decision to exclude a notice of motion for business to be considered at this meeting because the General Manager believes the implementation of the business would be unlawful. I've added in the word believes. I don't believe it's my motion. I can't argue with the decision. It's black letter law, giving the General Manager absolute power to to rule this way, but I do intend to bring the subject matter of this motion that's been ruled unlawful to the next meeting as a motion to be debated for a future annual conference.
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Thank you, Councillor Ring. Anybody else wishing to speak on that? Thank you. Right of reply.
No, sorry.
Councillor Marnie.
Just briefly, yeah, look, I'm somewhat lost because we don't get any information as to why the notice of motion may be unlawful and its content, but if I understand rightly for what Councillor Leslie stated, that it will come back to us in regard to the content matter. So I'm happy to leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Right of reply, Councillor Leslie.
I don't wish to reply.
All right, thank you. I'll put that motion. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Yes, that's correct. Against? The amendment now becomes the motion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Unanimous. Thank you. Can I have somebody move a note, please? The oath of affirmation of office taken by the new councillor, Councillor Ring. Thank you.
No, it doesn't.
The item was withdrawn, councillor, at the beginning.
Yes, that's correct.
10.6.1. Page 31.
Oh, the late report. The late report.
Oh, yeah, we've got a late report.
Is that this one? Yes.
Yes.
So the late report is 10.1.2, National General Assembly of the Australian Local Government Association 2023. Could I have somebody move this report? Thank you.
Happy to move since I was there.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman and Councillor Bryce. Councillor Coleman?
It's hard to speak to this report because it was late. However, I'm just going to give you a snapshot of what I felt about the conference. I felt that it was worthwhile. I was very interested in the debates, especially in regards to the grants, the FAGs as they call it, Federal Assistant Grants. We did get an increase, only a small increase. We're still advocating for a much bigger increase. I think what's important in regards to the General Assembly was also the fact that they're bringing that grant forward, which is quite exciting because, you know, more money in our coffers to support our residents is always a good thing and do what we need to do. I enjoyed networking. I got to meet a lot of the federal politicians who I knew from a previous life, two in particular. One I'll specially mention was federal member Emma McBride, who happens to be the Parliamentary Secretary for Regional Health, which is very important. And I raised the fact that our MRI here needs assistance and she will advocate on her behalf. But we had great networking opportunities. I know that the Mayor also had opportunities to speak with others as well. So that was really important. I think it's worthwhile. We learn a lot, we listen a lot. The debates were interesting, especially around, you know, nuclear power and new energy. So I think it's worthwhile and I think opportunities come out of it.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak? Any debate?
Yes, I have
Councillor
some
Ring?
questions, please, Councillor Statham. For either yourself or Councillor Coleman, given we have a LEAP project out there in public exhibition, did you get the opportunity to speak to any federal ministers who can help us implement that program.
The Mayor's asked me to address that, and the report does speak to that. In the week that we were there, the federal government announced the Net Zero Advisory Board, which is a board that's been established as a precursor to an authority. The Australian government has expressed a commitment to work with communities, including Lithgow, that will be affected by that migration to net zero. And so we heard from Minister Bowen at the Australian Council of Local Government on the Friday, and in fact, as the report acknowledges, the Mayor stood to question the Minister. As it worked out, there was someone in the queue on another microphone ahead of the Mayor who asked the exact same question, and that was, would it not be appropriate for local government to also be represented on that advisory board? And the Minister committed that that he would facilitate discussions between the head of that board and local government. And as the report also acknowledges, we took the opportunity while there to meet with the general managers and administration of other coal mining communities, and we've got other meetings convened.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Any other debate here? Thank you. Councillor Marnie.
I enjoyed the report, so thank you for producing it. There's some critical points in my mind, particularly around tide grants, and there's a discussion about a policy-driven grant funding. I sat in an asset management workshop recently where there's a talk about trying to put this forward to funding bodies, that you present the items in your asset management plan, which gives you the capacity to ask for untied grants against those. So I like the thinking that's captured in that. I agree the federal assistance grants funding, it's a bit of a strange one, because when we talk about the 1% in the 90s, it isn't 1% of the same amount of money now, so 0.5% is of a larger amount. So it's a little bit difficult sometimes to track, but a 1% target is certainly would give us a very good outcome. So there was a lot of the right thinking and conversations going there, and I think that's why it's important that we represent ourselves at these things to keep influencing. And I particularly liked the issues around co-contributions for smaller councils, because if we're going to believe in small rural councils being in place for their communities, we've got to get some offsets to start helping them. So some of those co-contributions were good suggestions as well. So thank you for the report.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Coleman, right of reply? No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. 10.6 Policies and Governments. Councillor Delegates for vacant positions on committees. Could I have somebody move this, please? So we're looking for two councillors for two committees.
I'll
the
move
first one. Yes, the first position available is the Finance Committee.
I'm happy to move Councillor Ring for Finance Committee and Operations Committee. I mean, I understand that Councillor Goodsell was on those committees, so it's basically like for like, I guess.
I'm happy to accept that nomination.
I move that we nominate Councillor Marnie for the Operations Committee.
If I may, Mayor Stephen, I'd like to move an amendment that the terms of reference both committees are amended to allow both councillors to be placed on them. This was common practice in the last council.
What was that? Could you just repeat that, sorry?
That the terms of reference are amended so that instead of only one councillor being placed on both committees, two councillors could be placed on, particularly the Operations Committee.
I think this already. Well, at the moment, we'd have to bring a report back to change the Constitution, because at the moment, I think every councillor pretty much attends that meeting. But at the moment, there's Councillor McGee and Councillor O'Connor. And the position vacant means there's a third person, so we're happy to put a third person there. So
Mayor,
I'm voting on at the moment the
Mayor,
first one, which is the Finance Committee.
Sorry. I wouldn't
Councillor
mind
Leslie?
going on the Finance Committee meeting.
Pardon?
I wouldn't mind going on the Finance Committee.
Well, we're dealing with the Finance Committee now, so Councillor Coleman has put forward for Councillor Ring, and you have nominated yourself for the Finance, and Councillor Bryce. Councillor Marnie.
Councillor Marnie for the Operations Committee.
No, just Finance at the moment. Anybody else wishing to? Right, okay, so we have two people now, Councillor Ring and Councillor Leslie for the Finance Committee. Hands up those people. I don't mind in which order. What would the councillors prefer? The new councillor to go first or second? It doesn't bother me in the least.
Can I,
Right, well, you put forward first, councillor.
sorry, before we go to the vote, can I just be clear that we have no capacity to add additional councillors to the...
At this point in time, there are 3, and on any other committee there are 2. And I also attend that meeting, so there's 4, and I think then there's at least 4 staff attend that meeting as well. Somebody can go as an observer. But anyway, we'll put it to the vote.
And before you put it to a vote, Mayor, my understand those who go as an observer, you might want to check with the gentleman that can still ask questions. Is that correct?
If it's right on the topic.
Yeah,
Can't
if it's
go
on
off
the
the
topic,
topic.
they can still ask questions.
Yes,
Is that correct?
Yes,
Right.
correct. So we will put it to a vote. We have to be fair and equitable. Councillor, Mr General Manager, are you okay with this?
Well, it's the council's, the council sets the terms of reference, and on this occasion, so the practice for Councillor Ring's benefit, being a new councillor on this council, is that we have councillors who, under the terms of reference, are appointed to those committees. However, numerous councillors attend as observers, and in fact, we've made it very clear that those observers can participate in the discussion. To me, I think that seems like it works pretty well on this council, and tonight we're finding that we've got a lot of people wanting to be on the committee. I wonder if that'll be the case in the future, and then we'll find ourselves that, you know, we're dragging the councillors out too many nights, or not all the councils will want to be. So, you know, we've got our situation where we've got a core that are on the committee, and then others can be there and participate. But I'm in your hands.
Yes, Nathan, if I
you want
may.
to change the terms of reference, the council can.
The terms of reference can be changed on any council at any time.
That's it.
It's not an issue.
Councillor Coleman, you nominated Councillor Ring. So could I have please all those in favour of Councillor Ring?
Well, I think we should probably deal with whether the council wants to change the terms of reference.
They can be changed. Or alternatively, we can vote tonight for the terms of reference to be looked at.
Well, I'm happy to put up a recommendation for the terms of reference to be adjusted.
Happy to second that.
For both committees. For both committees.
Yep. Yep.
Yes, we've got a second. Do they want to speak to it or not? Just put it to the vote.
The mover and I've got a seconder. The mover want to speak to that, please?
Look, we did this in the last council. I don't think it's a bad thing. One extra person. And in the next council, if only 2 councils want to be on it, so be it. Modify it. Just because the terms of reference says you must have 4 councillors, if 4 councillors don't put their hands up, you take what you've got, you modify the terms of reference. I think this provides councillors with experience to get on there and to contribute.
Councillor Coleman?
I
didn't move it.
Sorry, Councillor. Sorry, no, did you second it? No, Councillor Marnie.
Look, I'm a firm believer in having as much diversity in thinking in the committees. We do a lot of work in committee. So I think if we've got councillors who are willing to come forward, I've come to pretty much every operations committee, and I've not been a designated councillor. I come to a lot of the committees. So if there are people who want to contribute to the thinking in those committees, I strongly encourage.
All right. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Leslie? No? All right. Carried, thank you.
Council comfortable with the nominations of three?
Right, are all councillors quite happy with the nominations? So let me be quite clear about this. Councillor Ring on the Finance Committee and Councillor Marnie. No, sorry. Councillor Leslie, that's correct. And on the Operations Committee is Councillor Ring and Councillor Marnie. Everyone happy with that? I need a mover for that, thank you. Thank you. A seconder, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Right, carried, thank you. The seconder was Councillor Goodwin. 10.6.2, policy 8.1, excessive water usage allowance for breakages.
I'll second.
Who moved it? Councillor Marnie.
This has been an issue that I've followed into the last term of council, and if I can say, council's behaviour with this has been characterised around fairness, and I'm pleased they've brought a process back where there's steps which are fair. We've all got to accept that some of the houses in Lithgow were built and their water systems were built well into the last century, and we end up with a -9 degree day. The fact there'll be breakages is not altogether unexpected. So I appreciate that the process will allow for these genuine situations. I know I had my pipes burst on a property, and I know the new smart meters actually, I did get a notification about it. Now I was away, I would have been putting out some fairly high volume water while I was away. So I was able to get the meter turned off. So there's some good system stuff going on here, and again, I'd like to publicly acknowledge when the staff are doing some good stuff, so they don't get a lot of time to get the airplay out there. So I think it's a good system, and we just maintain that fairness approach to it, and I'm more than happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Sorry, did Councillor Bryce second this or Councillor? Yes, Councillor Bryce.
I agree with Councillor Marnie. There's some really good processes being put in place, some fairness with the system, and there was no submissions were received during the exhibition period of this policy, so it's a shame, but go fully with the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wish to speak to this? Councillor Goodwin.
Through you, Mayor Statham, I'd like to ask a question without notice to Mr. Trapp. In relation to the water meters, do we have any indication of how many of the water meters are failing at all, or if any have failed, and what the outcome or what we do about that?
Through you,
Thank you, Mr. Trapp.
It's quite hard to quantify, I suppose, as a statistic. As we do our meter reading, we usually get the process through both our signal, the meters send out the signal. The ones that we pick up, we're able to utilise. We also get notifications as to whether there may be a false read or something like that. On those occasions, we just go out and replace them. We don't worry about determining whether it's, or what the cause of it being faulty is. We just go out and replace the meter so that it's back in with a new meter straight away, essentially. And that's a pretty much 2-week turnaround, if that.
Thank you, Mr. Trapp. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin.
Mayor Statham, if I could ask through you a question to the administration. In relation to the water meters, how many are failing to send back? Because the meter I have in Rousel Street, Portland, has not worked from day one. The meter works, but it is not sending back because of the poor telemetry. How many residents in the community are in that position?
Mr. Trapp, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. So, out of the about 8,600 on a quarterly read basis. We're usually reading about 300 of those meters. That could be for reasons that, yeah, they've got a fault with them or they aren't getting a signal out. This policy's been designed around both situations where, yes, council's getting the notification that there may be a leak there, but it's also based on the consumption. So once the billing period is over and residents are receiving their water bill, if they notice that, yes, their consumption's jumped up quite a bit, which is how we get a fair few of them, due to people not being signed up to Aquilus or to the smart metering system. After that billing period, once they do notice it, they're getting in contact with us and through our customer service team and being able to identify that leak and any problems they may have on their property. So it's been designed around both ways. But yeah, there are still some issues in the system. Being a hilly area, we are still trying to get through those and installing more receivers, more telemetry to be able to pick up those signals, as well as going out and replacing with immediacy those meters.
Thank you for that, Mr. Trapp.
Thank
If
you,
I
Mr.
may,
Trapp.
Mayor Statham, if I could speak to the motion. I will support it. I haven't had as much time to go into this as what I would normally do, having spent a lot of time on the rate increase. I do have some concerns with some of the wording, but I'll wait until I've had adequate time to actually review it and seek adequate advice.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Marnie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Okay. 11.1, Council Committee Reports. The Sports Advisory Committee meeting. Could I have somebody move
I'll
this?
move it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bryce.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce.
For a change, this committee meeting was well attended. Good. And a lot of the sports people spoke how well the grounds were kept. Like they felt that the cricket grounds were much better kept here and the football grounds than what they are in Bathurst and things like that. So we're very positive for a change about how we keep our sports ground and what the support they've been getting. There was some complaints about lighting at the football ground, the hockey ground and the soccer grounds. But what's that? Yeah, that's for the footy grounds. Yeah. Mr. Anderson addressed some of those issues with the members of the committee. So hopefully we'll see something in the future for those. Also, we provided Lyndall Pacious with $300 towards the cost of participating in New South Wales National School Swimming. She is a swimmer that represents Meadow Flat Public School, the very small school out there, and she's done extremely well, so we're happy to support her. Thank you,
Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodwin.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Statham. Sorry. Thank you, Mayor Statham. Just one question to Mr. Edgecombe through you, if I can, Mayor Statham.
Certainly, Councillor Goodwin. Mr. Edgecombe.
Sorry, Mr. Edgecombe. I sent an email to you on the 16th of the 6th. I haven't received a reply yet in relation to the car park area for the DA of the women's shed down at the sports ground, down at the showground. There was a question raised a couple of times through our sports committee in relation to the DA and why is there only one car park space allocated for that women's shed, which is I believe a disabled car parking space. The question was, why isn't there car parking spaces there for the women's shed? Because on some given days, as last weekend, it was jam-packed down there with people, and the car parking with this women's shed going where it is going to take away a lot of car parking spaces. Sorry,
Yep.
that was a question.
Through you, Mayor Statham, the number of car parking spaces for a development like this would be subject to building code rules that are typical for a building of its type and its use. So it would be a matter for our planners to respond to. So I'll make sure that a response gets to all of the councillors tomorrow regarding how that calculation was made and whether any actions required in response. But in terms of parking generally, I have spoken about this with the staff after the Sports Advisory Committee meeting last week. or earlier this month, sorry, and it was agreed that there needs to be some broader overview or review of parking more generally for the whole precinct. There is a business case which is subject to consideration for the strategic review of that entire sporting precinct, not just Tony Lucchetti, but also the Aquatic Centre, Marjorie Jackson, the Wattsford Conran, and the basketball stadium as well. So that whole precinct needs to review, and we plan to include a parking study as part of that.
Sorry, Mr.
That's all right.
Is that going to come through in the next few months, or is it going to be next year? Or
I would need to take that question on notice, Mayor Statham, and get that information to you.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe and Councillor Goodwin. If there's no other debate,
Mayor Statham, not through you, I'd like to ask a question of, I want some clarification from Councillor Goodwin, if I could.
Yes.
Yeah, I can ask it.
You can come through me.
Yes, that's what I've asked. What I would like to know is if the parking issues are occurring on weekends with weekend sport. It is a very quick question.
There'll be a report come back, Councillor Ring. Thank you. Councillor Bryce? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. TAL Committee, Seven Valleys Tourism Committee minutes, the 6th of June 2023.
I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Have a seconder, thank you. Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce.
Again, another uplifting committee meeting. It's good to see lots of people being upbeat about the tourism in Lithgow. The Beetle Fest in October, long weekend, I think it was. The discussion by the Main Street Main Street group, we would like to meet with council, so that'd be nice if you guys could organise that meeting. The Zigzag Railway, about integrating the Zigzag Railway into some of these events, including the Beatlemania and other things. It was very good. It was very good that we have such a strong, committed committee into forwarding the tourism of Lithgow.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodwin.
nothing from me, Ms. Statham.
Mayor, I have a few things.
Yes, Councillor Coleman.
I attended the Seven Valleys Tourist Committee. I actually enjoyed it. It was enlightening. There's one thing I do want to raise, and you brought it up to the attention of the committee. It was proposed Tina Turner flash mob tribute for the Main Street in late July on Friday afternoon or early Saturday. And I can just say from an early age, at every disco, every wedding, every ball, I danced the Nutbush, we all have. And Tina Turner passed away on the 24th of May 2023 in Switzerland. She did tour here in 1997, but she never visited Lithgow, so I'll make that point. I have a number of questions in regards to the proposal. You may need to come back to me, but I'll ask them if I may.
Yes, certainly.
1, will a traffic plan need to be arranged? 2, would the operations committee need to be informed? 3, would it need to be sent to the TALC committee? 4, which department will be responsible? 5, how will the shopkeepers and wider community be informed? 6, most importantly, where is the money going to come from? What budget does it come out of?
I'll answer that, Councillor Coleman. At this stage in time, there's been nothing set in stone. I've talked to a lot of people. They're all very excited that there could be a possibility, but all of those questions that you've just asked now will be put in a report for the next council meeting, if not before. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Because I'd like to move that no action be taken on this proposal
I'm quite happy with that.
At this stage, so I'd like to move that.
Have a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And before I move on there, I just want to talk about the Beetlefest concept. I was quite impressed with the presentation. I do have a concern. On the 23rd of June, in Katoomba, at the Family Hotel, they had a Beetlefest event. I'm just hoping that it won't be the same, that it'll be more extensive, and we just need to be mindful of that. I just want to bring that to the attention of the administration. It's really important. Because I did ask a question of the gentleman, and you were there, Mayor Statham, and the question was, is this done anywhere else? And they said only in the UK. So I just want to make sure the administration is aware that there was an event very similar held in Katoomba, but if we could get the administration aware of that, that would be fabulous.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Mr Edgecombe will speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Statham. Just very quickly, I note the interest of the council in the event. It is a fantastic event on paper, and we have been asking some questions of the organisers, and I assume the council would like to know more as well, more broadly. So we have spoken with the event organisers, and we've scheduled those two gentlemen to present at the information session scheduled for the 10th of July.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Mr Edgecombe. If I may, Mayor, I've got that we note that I would like to move that no action be taken on the Tina Turner event at this stage. Thank you. I've moved that, and I understand the Councillor Ring has seconded that. So if we could deal with that, that'd be great.
Councillor Ring, would you like to speak to that? Thank you.
No, I think it's all quite reasonable.
Anybody else wishing to speak on that? Councillor McGee?
It doesn't suggest that we do take any action on this Tina Turner thing in here. So to actually say that we can't take action means that you can't even plan it to begin with, to bring us some information on what may or may not happen. So it's sort of stopping even just the thought of it in my mind. Is that correct? Like, to stop it, to say that there'll be no action taken in the future means that you can't even put the theory or the idea forward in the future. So it's a bit self-defeatist, a bit mean.
Councillor Ring and Councillor Coleman, it's been suggested to me to put this into matters of great urgency. It's not in this presentation. You took it out of the Tourism Committee, which is what we're talking about, but I think at the moment we're discussing what's in here. So,
Yeah, it is in the minutes.
oh yes, it is in the minutes. I beg your pardon.
If I could, Mayor, I was under the impression before I went out to the gents that Councillor Coleman was asking for no action to be taken until it's brought back from council. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
That's not what's on the resolution in front of us.
You didn't say brought back to council.
I would like to move no action to be taken on this proposal and be brought back to council.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So all those in favour of Councillor Coleman, no action taken?
Can we just clarify the actual motion, please?
That no action be taken on the Tina Turner Nutbush
Until further notice.
until further notice.
Yeah.
Up to date, there's certainly been no action taken, so there's nothing really to
Until
discuss.
the resolution comes back, I'm not voting until further notice.
That's better.
Yeah. All right, thank you. All those in favour say aye.
Councillor,
Let's rework this, shall we? No action to be taken on the Tina Turner flash mob promotion until a report is brought back to council. Sorry,
I've never used the word flash mob.
it's in the minutes, Mayor. Oh, you might not have used it,
No, I didn't ever.
but it's in the minutes. That's where I got it from.
Never heard of it. Right, okay.
Can I suggest the report come back, if I can ask through you, Mayor, to Councillor Coleman, that the report come back to one of the committees, just to reduce the load attached to it?
No, I wanted to come back here. We're the decision makers.
Look, I'll make the decision right now if you like. You know, I don't mind if it doesn't go ahead. I was only doing something that I thought the community would think was a good idea, and certainly the amount of response I've had has been exponential. So I just thought it'd be something that was positive, with a very, very, very little budgeting required, possibly a couple of $100 for a microphone set.
That's not the feedback I've gotten. That's why I wanted to be brought back.
Well, we move into different circles, possibly. Anyway, okay, I'll withdraw my having the Tina Turner Nutbush in the main street to enhance the shops and to bring in tourists and accommodation. So I'll make sure that the accommodation will be cancelled. It was going to be discussed at the next meeting with the GM next week, but I'm quite happy to cancel all that, Councillor Coleman, if you're so against it.
I'm not so against it, Mayor Statham. I've put a motion up. It states very clearly that no action be taken on the Tina Turner flash mob promotion until the report is brought back to council. Let's have a proper debate on it. Let's bring it back here. We're the decision makers. Let's bring it back. That's what I'm saying. Let's put the motion. If it gets lost, it doesn't.
The thing is, you see, we wanted to do it close to her death. Councillor Leslie?
Councillor Coleman did ask a series of questions, and until those are answered, then no decision can be made. And therefore the amendment that no action be taken until it comes back to the council is appropriate. And of course, when that does come back to council, those questions will be answered.
Absolutely. All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Leslie, Councillor Ring and Councillor Coleman. Against? Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Marnie, I can't see your arm. Oh, sorry, Councillor Marnie voted with Councillor Coleman, Ring and Leslie. And I'll vote against that, thank you. So Councillor Coleman's moving of that motion has been defeated. 11.3, TALC Committee. Yes. Pardon?
The minutes haven't been endorsed.
Oh, yes, that's what we were here for, wasn't it?
I'd actually like to talk to the Seven Valleys Tourism Committee. Can I just get clarification as to when the business chamber vacancy will be filled?
Sorry, Councillor Marnie, I can't hear.
Sorry, I just wanted to get clarification of when the business chamber's vacancy on the committee will be filled.
If I may, Mayor Statham.
Just wait, just one moment, please, till I speak to Councillor Marnie. We'll take that on notice, Councillor Marnie. Thank you. Councillor Ring.
To answer Councillor Marnie's question, the Chamber Executive have actually made a decision and they will be writing to the council with a person to go onto that committee. Thank you.
Councillor Ring. So the motion has to be moved, please. Pardon?
We just need the minutes.
Yeah, just to adopt the minutes, please. Can I have a mover? Thank you. Yeah, I've got Councillor Bryce and Councillor Goodwin. Yeah. So all those in favour of the minutes, thank you. Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Marnie, Councillor McGee, Councillor Statham. Thank you. Carried, thank you. TALC Committee, the 1st of June 2023. Could I have somebody move this, please?
So I'd like to move that.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie.
There's a number of issues.
I'd like to second it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bryce.
Just a number of points I'd like to draw the council's attention to. The recommendation point 2, the proposed 40k high pedestrian area for the Portland Business District, that's to go out for a public consultation for 28 days, and I think it's a very good idea, and I hope that there is support for it. I did ask at the meeting as to whether the precinct would be identified by thresholds, slightly raised entrances, and this was discussed, and I was advised, and I accept the decision that it would be inappropriate, being a heavy vehicle route. So I accepted that, but I thought it should be raised. And on point 5, there's the. I'm reasonably confident the council the councillors would agree that there is a necessity to, or a valid reason to reduce the speed from Thompson's Creek Road between Range Road and Piper's Flat Road from 100 kilometres to 80 kilometres. I think that makes a lot of sense. And on point 6, this is something that I am personally concerned about. The recommendation is that we investigate the feasibility and community support for a marked crossing in Main Street, Wallerawang. I've always been concerned about the imposition of pedestrian crossings just because various people in the community think and see the need for them. Pedestrian crossings themselves, in my view, are quite dangerous. People trust, children particularly, trust them. They think they're safe. They see the lines on the ground and they think, well, this is good, I can cross here. And of course, the cars don't necessarily, car drivers don't necessarily see the children, and there's potential danger. So I'm at this stage, it's only a investigation and feasibility. But if I just put it out that it's not necessarily something that I would personally support, but I'm happy for the investigation to take place. Otherwise, I'll move the recommendation as printed.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. I have a second to that. Councillor Bryce, yes.
Through you, Mayor, can I ask Councillor Leslie a question?
Yes, through the chair you can.
Yeah. 72 Main Street, is that the bakery? Councillor Leslie?
Oh, I'm not sufficiently aware of Main Street, Wallerawang, but I'm sure that Mr. Edgecombe would.
Mr. Edgecombe, is that the bakery?
In 2 seconds, and I'll tell you. It's Bottom Pub.
Thank you. That was just makes it a bit more sense. It's sort of towards the end of Main Street area.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Bright.
No, I'll just go with the recommendations.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee?
Yes, please. I'd like to suggest or move an amendment to remove number 5 until the reasons for this are brought to council. I find that the reduction in speed limits, that you need a very good reason for this. Chopping and changing country road speed limits is, it's a bad idea. I'm a country driver, and city drivers, they love their 80Ks, and they all do 60 and 70 and 75 and nice and safe, but that's a 100K area out there, and the reduction would want to be very justified.
Thank you, Councillor McGee.
Amongst the people who live there.
Mr. Edgecombe's going to speak to that. Thank you.
I agree with you, Councillor McGee. There does need to be a robust process before we go about chopping and changing speed limits. I'm pleased to say that it's not a council responsibility. We can't make a decision to change a speed limit one way or the other. It goes through Transport for New South Wales, and there is an absolutely rigorous set of guidelines and criteria that must be met before a speed limit's changed. So the only reason that might be reduced is if there's a genuine need for it. So if that is successful, the information will be reported back through the TALC committee for consideration. So it will have a rigorous assessment process through Transport for New South Wales, and only if there's a genuine engineering need will there be a speed limit reduction proposed.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Leslie.
Yes, I appreciate Councillor McGee's comment on that, and I'll take that into account when the matter comes back to the TALC. I'll take it into account that there is opposition, expressed in this council chamber, and so yeah, thank you for the feedback.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. It's of great urgency, thank you.
I just want to raise something, if I could, Mayor.
Yes, councillor Coleman.
There was the gentleman that was in Cook Street Plaza has moved to the Tats. He's living there now. The other day, Sunday, I believe, he was egged by a couple of youths. I know that it's not in our jurisdiction, but I just want to raise it to someone's attention. I don't know whether or not we have to clean the path, but it was a pretty cowardly act, and I just wanted to raise that. I know it's probably not business of great urgency, and I'll leave it with yourself and the administration.
Look, I won't deal it as business of great urgency, but it's a very important matter, and administration and or the particular staff involved will look into that, and we appreciate that bit of knowledge. Thank you. We can close tonight at 10 p.m. Thank you for all attending. And thank you to the public gallery for staying on tonight.